Littleton City Council to order on, where are we, July 15th, 2025. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Schlachter,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Barr,
Yep.
Councilmember Driscoll, he just stepped out. Councilmember Grove,
Here.
Councilmember Peters,
Here.
Councilmember Reichart,
Here.
Councilmember Zink.
Here.
Mayor, we have quorum.
Councilmember Driscoll is back. All right, please rise as you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, next up on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Council, you will have a chance to look at the agenda. Any changes? Seeing no changes, it's approved without objection. Item 4 are proclamations. We have no proclamations tonight. Item 5 is public comment period. Public comment period is time for members of the community to come express opinions to city council and city staff that are not part of public hearings tonight. We will have a separate agenda item for that. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. When you approach the podium, please state your name and your address. I'll let you know when you hit your 3-minute mark. We expect comments to be civil. Disrespectful and disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Council is not authorized under open meeting laws to take action at this meeting on any issue raised by public comment that is not part of tonight's agenda. I may refer matters to the attorney or city manager to respond during their comment period. We've got a list of people signed up here, and if you did not have a chance to sign up, we'll give you an opportunity after everyone's spoken. So first up, we have Skip Maxwell.
My name is Skip Maxwell, and I reside in the 2nd District. Council held a study session on June 10th where the charter amendment language was discussed. Rooted in Littleton offered to participate so that there would be no misunderstanding of the intent of the amendment. However, Rooted in Littleton's offer was turned down. As a result, we believe there is confusion about the intent of the charter amendment. Our single-family neighborhoods are the heart of Littleton's charm, offering peaceful streets, open spaces, and a sense of community that we all cherish. On January 7, 2025, Ordinance 31-2024, which would have allowed duplexes, triplexes, and fourplex buildings in these special areas, was scheduled for approval on a second reading by the City Council. Thanks to the citizens' voices and dedication, we successfully stopped this plan on the eve of its approval. However, the mayor and some council members have directed staff to begin exploring similar changes in early 2026, which would impact the character of our neighborhoods. Together, we can ensure our community stays true to its roots and our leadership moves in a direction in line with our wishes. To safeguard our communities, we're proposing an amendment to the Littleton City Charter. That is our city's guiding constitution, a document that can only be changed by a majority of vote of the citizens that it governs. The charter language was drafted by our legal counsel. Once finalized, the petition was submitted to the city clerk, who approves the petition form as required by law. The city attorney also had an opportunity to review the amendment language. We hope this amendment will be on the ballot for the citizens in November. We believe most Littleton voters are aligned in this cause, but some groups and city leaders may try to dissuade citizens. We want to explain the amendment in simple, friendly terms, showing how it will protect our desires, keep our community informed, respect everyone's property rights, and preserve our single-family residential zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Skip. Next up is Jen Carlton.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Jen Carlton, and I reside in the 3rd District. I would like to explain why over 2,200 Littleton residents believe this charter amendment matters. As stated on January 7th, 2025, the City Council tried to update the Uniform Land Use Code otherwise known as the ULUC, that sets rules for what can be built and where it can be built in Littleton. The council's proposal would have allowed multi-unit housing in our single-family neighborhoods. Currently, the ULUC allows the council to make arbitrary changes like this without any notification to us as residents. If passed, this amendment will require notification, prevent significant changes in our communities, and give this power to us, the voters. We ask for your continued support to preserve what makes Littleton, Littleton. The first sentence of the petition language reads, "Shall Section 65.5, Preservation of Neighborhood Land Use Restrictions, be added to clarify the intent of the citizens to preserve single-family residential land use and ensure that current and future owners of property in certain residential zoning districts may rely on restrictions on land uses that protect their properties." The petition proposes adding a new section called 65.5 to our city charter. It clearly states that we, as Littleton residents, want to keep our single-family neighborhoods. We want to keep them just as they are currently defined in the ULUC. It ensures that everyone who owns a home currently and in the future can trust that these neighborhoods won't be redeveloped to denser housing, keeping their homes and lifestyles secure. This matters. You chose your neighborhood for its quiet, vibrant, and welcoming charm. This amendment protects that choice, giving you confidence that your home's value and the community that you love will remain intact. Thank you.
Next up is Mark Harris.
Good evening. My name is Mark Harris, and I reside in District 2. The charter amendment that has been proposed is comprised of 4 sentences. You've already heard about the first. I'm here to talk a little bit about the second. The second sentence of the proposed charter amendment states that land uses of properties presently permitted under the Littleton Unified Land Use Code within zoning districts small lot residential, medium lot residential, large lot residential, and acreage residential are limited to uses specified therein as of January 1, 2025. This second sentence of the charter amendment is really the heart of the matter. This provision would incorporate the definitions of those 4 residential zones mentioned above and protect them by making them a part of the charter. The definitions of the 4 zoning districts would remain as defined on January 1, 2025 until voters of Littleton decide otherwise through future charter changes. To be clear, these 4 zoning districts are currently primarily limited to single-family homes. Despite accusations that I've heard from others that this proposed amendment would be permanent and would lock in current land uses forever, that is simply not true. However, any future changes to the definitions would require a vote of the people. Putting this important decision about the character of our neighborhoods in the hands of Littleton voters is the way it should be, not in the city council's hands. Lastly, I just learned a little while ago that the city council was scheduling another study session, the second one, for July 22nd about this charter amendment. And I wrote to each of you folks, each of you council members, and the city attorney, and the city manager, and I requested an opportunity to address the council about our proposed amendment, or at least to answer any questions you might still have. I have not received a response from any of you to date, and I wrote you sometime early last week. We request, again, an opportunity to provide assistance to you on our proposed charter amendment, on the intent and the language of the charter amendment that you folks expressed earlier that you had some confusion on. We'd like to assist you in that regard at your next study session. Thank you.
Next up, Jane Brennan.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jane Brennan, and I reside in the 4th District. The third sentence of the amendment reads, "Any action by council to initiate any comprehensive rezoning and official zoning map amendments, including text changes, shall first require notification to all affected property owners by first-class mail delivered by the U.S. Postal Service." This means if the city council tries to make significant ULUC changes, like allowing new types of buildings across many properties, they must first send a notification by U.S. mail to every homeowner affected. We believe our properties are worth at least a first-class stamp. This requirement keeps everyone informed about major proposals that impact their property and their neighborhoods. Some have said this is too expensive. However, only impacted property owners have to be notified, which means the cost is minimal unless the council wants to make changes to larger geographic areas of the city. We receive important notifications in the mail, like our property tax bills, right? Doesn't this deserve the same consideration? This matters. We learn that text changes to the ULUC can catch us by surprise when there is no real significant require to notify property owners. This requirement ensures that council keeps us informed so that we can share our thoughts, participate in the process, and stay involved. Additionally, it helps to rebuild a modicum of trust and transparency to an already scarred population base. Thank you.
Next up is Ben Van Dyke.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ben Van Dyke. I reside in the 2nd District. I grew up in District 3, actually. I've lived in Littleton my whole life. And I love Littleton so much that I decided to move to District 2 about 7 years ago, 3 houses north of our new brewery. The last sentence of the proposed language is about protecting each property owner's right to rezone their property. It reads, "Nothing herein shall prohibit or prevent a property owner from seeking rezoning of the owner's property." This clarifies that while we're protecting our neighborhoods as a whole, any homeowner can still request a zoning variance for their property if they want to build something different by following the established process that's currently in place. This matters. We value both our community and your individual rights. This amendment focuses on stopping large-scale changes that affect everyone while ensuring you can still make choices about your own property. Ordinance 31-2024 reminded us how important it is to protect the single-family neighborhoods that make Littleton special. This amendment, added to our city charter, will preserve our community's character, prevent our roads and infrastructure from being overwhelmed, like the brewery, and help maintain the property values we've worked hard for. It also ensures our voices are heard through voting and clear communication from the council. Let's keep Littleton's neighborhoods a wonderful place to call home for years to come. Thank you.
Next up is Brian Wheeler.
Hi, everybody. Brian Wheeler, live in District 4. There are risks associated with upzoning Littleton's residential neighborhoods. Littleton city leadership, you continue to press an aggressive upzoning and densification plan targeting single-family neighborhoods as a canvas for urban development. We have over 3,000 construction unit starts in the development pipeline and another 3,500 in the city's future agenda. Littleton stands at a critical juncture. Additionally, SLR lots north of Cayley already allow and have for many years duplexes offering an untapped opportunity for future growth. Why is the city not advancing housing ownership opportunities where it already exists, as opposed to continuing to push multiplexes and apartment buildings. The city must evaluate the impacts on infrastructure, community character, and affordability before irreversible changes occur. The stated goal of upzoning is to increase housing supply and affordability, but evidence from Denver and other major cities from around the country shows that this often backfires. We need to pay attention to the lessons learned to preserve our residential neighborhoods. Studies such as those from the Urban Institute show that upzoning often benefits developers while failing to deliver affordable housing for low and middle-income families. Littleton's infrastructure, its roads, utilities, and public services was designed for a smaller, less dense population. Rapid densification risks overwhelming these systems, leading to higher maintenance costs and potential tax increases. The promise of affordability remains unfulfilled as market rate developments cater to higher income buyers, leaving working families and seniors priced out. Community input has been sidelined in the rush to densify. Many residents feel their concerns about preserving Littleton's small-town charm, fostering inclusive neighborhoods, and ensuring sustainable growth are being ignored. The amendment will allow time for comprehensive studies, transparent public engagement, and exploration of alternative solutions such as targeted affordable housing initiatives. Let's protect our single-family neighborhoods, preserve our community's unique character, and ensure growth that respects the needs of all residents, not just developers. Let's learn from the mistakes of others and choose a sustainable, intelligent path forward. Thank you.
Next up is Tammy Whitney.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tammy Whitney, District 4, President of Rooted in Littleton. On behalf of Rooted in Littleton, I would like to thank the 55 Littleton citizen petitioners who volunteered to collect signatures. In a mere 6 weeks, well before the August deadline, we collected 2,202 signatures. We collected 375 signatures, more than the required 1,827, to place this on the November ballot. This was a true grassroots effort by the residents of Littleton. 55 petitioners, 77 petitions right here. Sections that are done to preserve the Littleton we love and live in. I would like to thank everyone who passed a petition. I would like to thank everyone who signed a petition. And now I would like to present these to Wendy, because Colleen is on vacation, the city clerk. You have to check them in? Yeah. Well, I would like to present them to you for tonight. And I will see you tomorrow morning at what time? Anytime. 8 o'clock? Sure. Okay, thank you.
Next up, Rick Cronenberger.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Littleton City Council. I'm Rick Cronenberger at 5796 South Lakeview Street, and I support the proposed resolutions that address the City Ditch and Slaughterhouse Gulch flume preservation. By redirecting the proposed funds identified by the City of Englewood for the demolition of the flume into its preservation, not only does it save this important feature of the city ditch, it also provides seed money for future grants that could be used to preserve and interpret this most historic structure in Littleton. I also strongly support the Historic Preservation Commission's recommendations to save the ditch and the flume. The oldest structure in Denver, in the Denver Front Range, is the 1859 4 Mile House. Our city ditch, completed in 1864, is one of the 10 oldest structures in the Front Range, and one truly unique to both Littleton, Englewood, and Denver. The city ditch is the largest structure in Littleton, running the entire length from north to south of the city, with a community trail created to follow that alignment. There are several abandoned sections of the ditch still remaining in the city that could be creatively interpreted along with our history. Sadly, all of the city ditch located south of the west side of Santa Fe Drive has been destroyed. After all, the comp plan strongly encourages the preservation of our historic and historical structures that relate to our 163-year history from when Richard Littleton homesteaded in our downtown to the area and present. It provides a unique cultural attraction to Slaughterhouse Gulch and preservation as well. Thank you very much.
Next up is Arthur Garfein. I think I hit the wrong.
My name is Arthur Garfein. I'm in District 1. I would just like to support Rick's previous comments. Historic Littleton, Inc. has been a wonderful organization in our community, and they have strongly come out in favor of preserving the city ditch and the flume. City ditch is 25 years older than our home, which is a designated historic site for the city of Littleton. So I would just like to add my support of the council's ability to preserve that historic structure. Thank you.
Next up is David Grine.
Hello, Council. I'm David Crine. I live at 662 West Euclid Avenue. And I'm here to just give an update. They're having the major road construction right now in front of Euclid Middle School. And it's the safer streets underneath that. We had a meeting back in March 4th alerting us to the construction. A number of the residents there, immediately knew that there was going to be design issues with the street. It's a complete renovation. I've emailed the town, a number of you. I've spoken to Stephen here. I'm in District 3, actually. And they're about halfway done with the project. We raised a lot of concerns about the design in that it's severely constricting the street, and you've eliminated the bicycle path on one side of the road and the shoulder on the other. And we're very concerned about the snow removal on the street. And there's nowhere to put the snow anymore. This will be my 20th winter of removing snow there. And you've essentially in the design, and it's becoming more apparent every day that the construction goes by, that the concerns of us, we were correct. It's under the safer streets, the extended curbs that they're putting in are so constricted that the trucks can't, I was right there tonight talking with Jim from the town, and garbage truck couldn't get out of the street, couldn't turn the street, it's so tight. And then up on Delaware, when he's getting off of Euclid, he couldn't make the turn. The turn is so, that you've put the curbs so far out into the street, the truck had to drive up and over the curb. So essentially what the residents on the street are elderly. You've essentially given us 3 times as much sidewalk to clear with the snow. I'm no youngster, but I'm like the youngest one on the street. There's now nowhere to plow the snow. You used to be able to plow the snow on the shoulder and in the bike path. You've eliminated that now with concrete. And our concern is that there's nowhere now to put the snow. And I've gotten no response from the town in regards to that plan. It seems like the project went forward without really giving any consideration to snow removal. And you've got a problem because you've eliminated the parking off the street. There's no parking for the school parents anymore, anywhere up and down the street. And when it snows now, you're gonna have a problem. You're not plowing, you have no plan to plow the side streets, Delaware or Arapahoe, that's to do parking lots for the school, Euclid. And you have no plan to plow those streets and remove the snow off of,
Thank you, David.
of Euclid Avenue. So I hope that you give some consideration.
Next up is Robin Bernstein.
Good evening, Council. My name is Robin Bernstein, and I want a world that works for all. First of all, I don't have a car, and I haven't had one for 25 years. So Wes Marshall, in his book Killed by a Traffic Engineer, says that traffic deaths are a moral issue. It is a public health failure when pedestrians are killed by the car. A public health nuisance is the car, and Littleton's dependence on the car is a real health hazard to me. That's a great, let's see. I think that what Pat Driscoll was saying in the Littleton Independent about the cops monitoring our businesses, and protecting the businesses, well, the cops can do more than that. They can actually stop these speeding vehicles and ticket them and fine them. And then I have an idea. They take a class by the cop, and that'll embed in their minds the cop and the class, which might not be too pleasant, dealing with cops. But they can focus on stopping the speeding vehicles and cell phone users, give them a ticket in a mandatory class. The Safer Street Initiative needs safety as a priority for pedestrian and bikes. Reduce the speeds for the car. 2, protective left turns. Give pedestrians time to cross. Prioritize sidewalks. Traffic is a living laboratory of human interaction where every car is competing for asphalt. Driver's ed taught them how to get a license, but nothing about mental awareness, being mindful, and triggers that can lead to road rage. I see it all the time. Also, try crossing on foot, the corner by the fitness center, in the Woodlawn Shopping Center, that parking lot. That's a real killer. If I can get by there without getting killed, I've talked about it at the Transportation and Board meeting. They need to patrol that area. It's just too much. And also bring back the shopping cart. That would help Littleton residents, me, and everybody else. Thank you.
Next up is Daniel Fleschner.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Fleschner, and I'm the property owner in District 1 on Cedar Street. I'm here tonight to respectfully urge City Attorney Reed Betzing to seek judicial review for all land use referenda scheduled for the November ballot. Colorado's new legislation, HB 25-1093, empowers cities like Littleton to proactively request court review to ensure legal compliance before measures go to voters. This step protects our democratic process, avoids costly legal battles, and ensures voters consider only lawful, properly drafted initiatives. I encourage the city to act in the public's best interest and take full advantage of this important legal tool. Thank you.
Next up is Karen Hamilton.
Hi there, Karen Hamilton. I'm in District 2. And my comment is similar but just a bit different from most of these. I want to make sure my voice is heard regarding any improvements to our Elottie Street. And the link to the Elottie Street corridor study has been broken for about a week, at least as long as I've been trying to access it. And I'm very concerned about the demise of Kettering Lake. It's becoming an eyesore. Thank you.
Next up is Audrey Howes.
Hello, Council. I'm Audrey Howes from District 4. I'm not here representing any group. However, my family and I are rooted in Littleton and also want a vibrant future for all of us. The citizen initiative being circulated right now isn't about zoning. It would freeze our land use code, could undo your recent decisions on ADUs, strip future councils of the ability to adapt, and expose our small city to costly lawsuits. More importantly, it's likely illegal under a new Colorado state law. But you don't have to guess, and you don't have to wait for a lawsuit. Starting August 6th, Colorado's new law, HB 25-109, Limitations on Local Anti-Growth Land Use Policies, gives you the power to request a judicial review of this initiative. It lets the courts determine whether it's even legal before it hits the ballot. That means voters get clarity, and Littleton avoids the kind of legal and financial mess we've seen in neighboring cities like Lakewood. Pursuing this review is not about silencing voices. It's about making sure the rules are clear before we all play the game. You've been given a responsible, legal path forward and a clear opportunity to lead. Council, please direct the city attorney to take action for all of us who are rooted here and for all of us who hope to be. Thank you.
Next up is Rebecca Cast.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Schlachter and council members. I'm Rebecca Cast. I lived for 38 years in District 4, and I just moved to 2100 West Littleton Boulevard. I think that's District 2, is that right? I hope someone knows. Well, anyway, one of you is my new district, my new council member. Anyway, okay, well, I was happy to get this in the mail a few weeks ago, mostly because of all of the references to historic preservation, and that's my passionate pursuit in the city. I've been advocating for 30 years, over 30 years for preservation. Anyway, I wanted to read the first two sentences in this to you. In Littleton, preserving the city's character and charm is vital to maintaining the small town feel, historic architecture, and close-knit community spirit that residents and visitors cherish. The quaint downtown historic landmarks and locally owned businesses are hallmarks of Littleton's identity. They connect generations and foster a strong sense of place. And it goes on to say about how when we honor our rich past, Littleton can continue to thrive as a dynamic and inclusive community. And I know you guys are all here kind of talking about that, but what my issue is the city ditch. That's the oldest working thing in the whole metro area. Dr. Richard Little, he wasn't a doctor, excuse me, Richard Little was a surveyor. He came out, surveyed this over 150 years ago. He did such a good job, it's still working today. And we have it, it's going to be piped because Englewood gets its water supply from it. That's fine, no problem. But we have sections of it that are intact, and I would like to see that preserved. And I know we talk a good talk about historic preservation in the city of Littleton, but we don't always walk that talk. And it's up to every one of you guys to walk that talk. I've done this for over 30 years, like I said, on Second Century Fund, Littleton, Historic Littleton, Inc. I was on the city's Historic Preservation Board, and I was a council member for 13 years, so I know what you're having to deal with. I was at plenty of things like this, too, that are controversial. But anyway, this should be a slam dunk for you guys, really. All you have to do is do nothing, just preserve it. You don't have to tear anything down, you don't have to fill anything in, just leave it the way it is. It'll last another 150 years. I urge you to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca, and you're right on the border, you're in District 1. Next up, Larry Borger. Larry Borger.
My name is Larry Borger. I live in District 1. Like many of the people that have followed the city ditch flume issue, I came tonight because I thought the city council was going to make a decision on whether or not the city was going to preserve that flume. You have a number of issues on the ballot, on the agenda, resolutions of council. But I was wrong about those resolutions. They all deal with how Englewood is going to build the pipeline and what happens after Englewood builds the pipeline. But as relates to the flume, it's an option. You have two choices, but there's no closure. The relevant language is in the intergovernmental agreement, page 3, paragraph J, under Englewood obligations. In that language, Englewood gives Littleton two options for the future of the flume. Littleton must decide which one it wants. Under option 1, under option 1, Englewood will cut up a piece of the flume and save it for Littleton to move somewhere else before Englewood demolishes the remaining structure. That's the first option. Second option is Englewood will pay Littleton's cost up to $100,000 for making the flume safe for, quote, preserving it in place or removing it at a later date. Littleton City Council must decide which option it wants to accept. I suggest that council decide tonight and pass a simple motion telling Englewood what Littleton wants to do. All it takes is a simple motion expressing the will of this city council. If you look at the issue, who's recommending that you save the flume? Your staff, the Historic Preservation Commission, which is a legitimate agency whose members you appointed, Historic Littleton, Inc., a number of present and future and former community leaders, all are saying save the flume. And Englewood will pay you $100,000 to do it. What part of no-brainer do I not understand? Please save the city ditch flume at Slaughterhouse Gulch. Thank you.
Next up is John Schmalz. John? Pass. Donna Cook? Pass. Ray N? Pass. Pam Chadmore?
Hi, Council, welcome back. I'm Pam Chadbourne. I live a block and a half from here. So first, let me just continue with the city ditch, but go further. The city is squandering its historic past. And a thing I want to add about historic preservation is that it is an economic boon. It's pretty much guaranteed. Like a rising tide, it raises all boats. Caring for buildings only gets more precious over time, and that care is reflected in attraction by people to that place. Whatever the district is, whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. For businesses, it is a boon. And for cities, historic preservation is a boon. And we have that opportunity, not just for Main Street, but in overlay mid-century modern of Littleton Boulevard and around downtown. And you should take that. You should include the flume because it's the basis of Littleton and that whole city ditch area, but include then Geneva Park and Geneva Lake and Geneva Village and the city center, because those are historic and will only increase in value as time goes on. We were promised, we the people were promised by the city that the city would add a historic preservation plan into the ULUC within a year when it was passed. You know, it's 4 years, 5 years later, and there is no historic preservation plan in sight on the work plan. This is a failure by the city. It is a betrayal by our management and our staff. I want you to direct policy that gets a historic preservation plan in place. So then the flume would have much more basis already developed. Historic Preservation Commission was involved way too late. That's another failure. So I'm very frustrated by this. You should have acted long, long ago on this historic preservation stuff. And We don't need a downtown development plan. We don't need a Littleton Boulevard subarea plan. We don't need, let's get rid of Geneva Village. We need a historic preservation plan that would protect all of those and all of our futures. It is good for business. It is an economic boon to the city continuing for many decades to come. You should establish a circulator bus. It's relatively cheap. It connects the first and last mile. It connects us to the light rail stations. And I think that that's kind of a no-brainer. The city should have notified the entire city of the zoning map change in the ULUC in 2020 and 2021. And our city attorney said, oh, you don't have to do that if you pass this waiver. It is appalling that that was done. And so, yes, the petition should guarantee that
Thank you, Pam.
people are notified of changes to
That's
their
everyone we
zoning.
have signed up. Are there other people in the audience who wish to speak? Frank?
Good evening, City Council. My name is Frank Atwood. I live in District 4. In past meetings, in future meetings, you're going to be discussing longest table issue, and I'm the micro level of that. My wife and I this Friday evening are hosting a potato potluck dinner. Some people think it's just a means for my wife to get me to vacuum the house, which is true, or that I'm simply providing the inexpensive potato and toppings, hoping you'll bring expensive stuff. Regardless, each of you has an invitation. I hope you'll come. And to the public here, see me after the meeting or before you leave, and I'll give you details. Thank you very much. And I'm grateful to hear that the city ditch is an issue that's being focused on, because as we know here in Colorado, whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting over. Thank you.
Miriam?
My name is Miriam Dunn. I live at the Postmark Apartments, one of the ghettos of the city of Littleton, owned by Four Star Realty. Well, I'm not going to talk about it. You guys can check it out and see how it's taken care of. So much. So be it. I want to speak about the South Metro Fire Department that has to take care of this entire region. We have forest fires, folks. Those people, they have to go home to their families, or they have to live at the fire station. They have to deal with fires. And we're worried about, I don't know, I've had them come and help me and take me to the hospital. And sometimes they just look at me and say, hi, we don't have the resources to take care of you. Because they came here before and they asked for a tax increase. But no, what are we going to do? Property tax? Increase it on the people? Increase that. But the poor people can hardly afford to buy a soda and then the good taxes on more? Okay. You have a hospital here, Advent Littleton Hospital. It is one of the key and most beautiful hospitals in the whole region. Thank you. Take care of it. Appreciate it. You have a towing service called Dick's Towing Service. It's the impound for police vehicles that get put there. My Jaguar was stolen by a drunk and put in that impound. I tried to get it out, but I didn't have the money. So Dick's Towing sold the car out from underneath me. I walk the streets now. I take the bus. And by the way, the bus on 66 once an hour is not enough for the people. Okay. Littleton Boulevard. Okay, I walk Littleton Boulevard. All those streets need a marking so that the people stop. I'm walking, and the people just look at me and move their cars wherever they want because there's not a white marking on the intersections. Handicapped individuals are the largest population in the United States of America. Don't forget them. Thank you.
Kate, were you going to speak?
No, I'm sorry, for ordinance.
Okay. Anybody else didn't sign up that wish to speak tonight during public comment? All right, seeing no one, we'll move on. We'll go to Councilmember Driscoll.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome to council tonight. Thank you for everybody for showing up. While we were on break there, we had some meet and greets. We have one, as a matter of fact, tomorrow night over at South Bridge Park from 4 to 6. Hopefully you can join us for that. We also had a ribbon cutting over at Snarf's. Great sandwiches if you haven't been there, right there in Alamo and Santa Fe. We also celebrated Red Rocks Credit Union, their 5th anniversary last week. And then this Friday, Old Town Tavern is having their 20th anniversary. Old Town Tavern right there in Prince and Maine. And then finally, the Downtown Development Authority will be having their meeting tomorrow. Right now, the Downtown Development Authority is working on the fences that go over Alamo, Littleton Boulevard, and Prince, the fences that go across the railroad tracks. So we're working on getting those updated and beautified. We're also already talking about the tree program coming this holiday season. So they've got their hands full. They just got done putting on the block party. So big success there. For anybody who came down for that, thank you so much for participating. We look forward to doing it again next year. Thanks.
Councilmember Zink.
Thank you. Well, a lot's happened in the last month, but I just wanted to highlight a couple things that I got to take part in. I got to go to an executive briefing for All Health. Learned a lot about the efforts that they're doing around, well, in Littleton and around Arapahoe County. They were talking about how they're trying to shift their focus to really just be right here. And I was really impressed with some of the future efforts that they have in the pipeline. And just on their focus on making sure that folks who are down and out, folks who have co-occurring mental health and substance abuse issues are looked after, and that they have somewhere that they can go to get some help and to get some resources. A lot of the All Health, for folks who might not be familiar, facilities and programs are wraparound service oriented, which means that the organizations are trying to make sure that they have access to job training and other things along those lines, as well as substance abuse treatment and mental health care. So just very impressive. But in addition, I hope that everyone here got a chance to go to the fireworks show on the 4th of July here in Littleton. It was a joint effort, as I understand it, between a couple cities and regional organizations. I thought it was a great show. It was really cool to see all the food trucks there and just seeing the community together in a welcoming environment. It was a really cool show. So good job to everyone who did that and put that on. And then I was going to talk about some of the ribbon cuttings we have coming up, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Peters.
Yeah, I'm gonna make mine a little more brief since we've had a lot of comment and long way to go. I was just going to say on a quick personal note, since we've had a few emails, I think most of council, about bike and safety cost and what we're doing on that front. My son actually over break had a small run-in with a car on a bike, which was completely fine. Luckily, everyone was fine. And there happened to be a police officer right there when it happened, which I see officers everywhere. I think they're very present and I feel safe in our city. And this is a testament to that. But it was also his first experience with a police officer without a parent around. And you know, it's a little nerve-wracking when you get a text from a kid that says, "We've been hit by a car and there's a cop here." And you're like, okay, we'll be right there. But we are putting this council, and I think families my age and younger care a lot about our bike and street safety. And my husband has said that our son can't bike to school this year. And I'm like, he's got to be able to bike to school. This is a kind of place that has charm and safe streets. And so it is a priority for us. And so, yeah, we're trying very hard to make it safe. And I know that there will be some bumps along the way, and maybe we won't do it properly the first time, and hopefully we can pivot quickly. But thanks for speaking to that for those of you who care about it. And let's slow down and give the biker the right of way and roll the window down and tell them that it's fair to go if it's in any way ambiguous. So that's all I was going to say about that.
Councilman Reichert.
Thank you. I want to echo Councilman Driscoll and say I'm really glad to see everybody here. I appreciate everybody showing up and sharing their perspectives. So thanks for coming, including my neighbors. So I'm glad to see you guys here. I had two thank yous I want to say. First of all, I want to say thank you to my colleagues and to city staff for the time we spent together at the CML conference. I think that was a great team-building exercise, and I particularly want to say thank you to Andrea for hosting us for dinner. That was a lovely dinner that we had at your parents' house, and I really appreciate you doing it. Then I want to also say thank you to the members of the Transportation Mobility Board who are holding extra meetings during the summer to help prepare for rewriting the Transportation Mobility Plan. And I just want to say thank you to them for their efforts to support the city. And what was the last thing I wrote here? Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Grove.
Yes, even though we didn't have meetings over the last month, we've been very busy with community events. One of the things I attended was our board and commission dinner, where we have a dinner for all the people that volunteer throughout the year to be on either a board or commission. I also attended the block party, which was a lot of fun, and saw some of my fellow council members there. It was a very busy time with a lot of food, music, and drink, and I, like Councilmember Driscoll, encourage you to go next year. I also attended the all health briefing with Councilmember Zink and learned about the crisis we have in our communities with mental health. I too attended CML. It was like a 2.5-day event. That's Colorado Municipal League that works with various cities throughout the state, and we attend a lot of different sessions and learn from other council people, from other staff people. We talk informally, and it's a great, great learning experience. I found the most interesting session was on parking and what other people are doing on parking, and was able to bring a lot of that back to the community and had a conversation with the city manager about that today. I also attended the Mid-Mud Mile celebration on Romano's birthday party. It was a whole lot of fun. It was on a Saturday afternoon at the end of last month. And there was a hula hoop contest. There was a costume contest. And then they had 1960 prices for Coke and pizza. So it was a whole lot of fun and a kind of a dual celebration. Also, Council Member Peters and I attended a meeting we have a quarterly meeting with South Suburban and talk about some of the needs we have in our community when it comes for parks, when it comes to parks, and what our citizens are looking for. And that was a very productive meeting, and actually we hopefully will see some modifications to the Jackass Hill park plan, and that was very satisfying for us. And don't forget, tomorrow is the Meet, Greet, and Eat at Southbridge, and we hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, well, welcome back, everyone, and thanks for all the updates and everything like that so far. And Andrea, I'm glad to hear that your son's okay. Honestly, that's terrifying. Real quickly, for the residents who might be in the audience from the Southbridge neighborhood, we've gotten a number of complaints on the Southbridge Rec Center, especially as it's becoming more of an attractive nuisance. I know our community development and code compliance team are actually working very diligently on the issue to contact the property owners and looking towards fines and abatement procedures. We as a council have to kind of be mindful that developers do take time to develop sites, but we cannot let them kind of fall into the disrepair and become that attractive nuisance that apparently this place is becoming. So thank you to the community development team and staff for moving on that. It's much appreciated. Attended Environmental Stewardship Board meetings, the last few, and I just wanted to thank the newly seated ESB on all the work that you've kind of dived into. It's been a variety of topics, including solid waste management and our, kind of emissions reduction plan for it as a city, and how that looks at our building decarbonization process as well. And I appreciate the time and the expertise that the public works staff has really been putting into it. It's extremely informative. It gives us new optics as a city that we haven't had before into not just decarbonization efforts, but essentially what the operating and fiscal costs that we are incurring as a city on our aging infrastructure. which then helps me segue into the Denver Regional Council of Governments update. Part of the DRCOG decarbonization program. All the municipalities and jurisdictions throughout the Front Range area are now eligible for kind of grants that are essentially helping create policies and programs, can be used for staffing, can be used for consultancies to support policy creation to help us make energy transitions in both our public buildings and our residential and commercial code. To look at energy savings over the long term. Really excited that the staff has been working on this and much appreciated on them being such an integral part of working with DRCOG and partnering jurisdictions on this work. Really looking forward to the solid waste management discussion. I know we may not have the same crowd or outpouring of enthusiasm that I feel internally, but it's a huge lift to make, and quite frankly, it's important that we as a council sit down and start these processes now with our due diligence to make sure we take the appropriate steps in decision-making for those long-term outcomes. Solid waste management in our region is quite frankly getting more expensive, the service is getting worse, and quite frankly, there are a lot of opportunities that we could avail ourselves of as the city of Littleton. So I'm looking forward to exploring what the results of some of that region-wide study have been in the coming weeks. And then I also just wanted to point out for the Denver Regional Council of Governments, we had a work planning session earlier this month looking at the 2050 Regional Transportation Planning document. It really governs a lot of the roadway, highway, bus route, like all the investments we think of when we look at transportation planning, multimodal planning. It was an extremely informative presentation, a lot of different scenarios that could be taken into account how we plan for transportation into the future. So I would really encourage folks to just even take a snippet at the presentation that the DRCOG staff made. Lastly, for the folks in the Rooted in Littleton group, our city manager is going to be getting back to you well, I don't know if I'm stealing the city manager's comments right now, but the city manager is going to be getting back to you with regards to your request to attend a study session. We've received a number of requests on actions that can be taken with regards to the petition. I think for myself, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the rest of the council, I don't personally have questions about the language that is in that petition, but I'm looking forward to the conversation on the 22nd where we can talk about what are the potential impacts and ramifications of that work and what steps or actions we as a city have to take in the future. So I'm looking forward to that conversation on the 22nd. But the city manager will also be addressing that message to that group as well.
All right, thank you. As most of the events updates have been already stated, I'll keep mine brief and short here and just want to speak to a misinformed comment during the public comment period about city council directing city staff to restart the housing policy discussion in 2026. I just want to say that is completely inaccurate and not true. What happened was staff said that their time was completely filled in 2025, and they wouldn't have any ability to even consider updating the work plan until 2026, and to check back in then about what might be taken done. So there is nothing on the agenda. There are no plans to restart anything. There will be, I'm sure a council will want to have a discussion at some point in the future, but there's nothing ready to go or on the agenda. So I just wanted to correct that bit. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. I'd first like to invite Lori Mata to step forward to the podium, to the lectern. Can't hear me? All right. If Lori can step forward, I will start an introduction, a very important introduction for our community. Lori is our new finance director, and Lori has been with us for about a month now and has started to get really involved and up to speed on many of our issues. I want to just introduce Lori, that she has a bachelor's degree in accounting and a master's in business administration from the University of Central Florida. She holds a certified municipal finance officer certification. Lori started her career in local government at a municipal utility in 2005 and quickly advanced to chief financial officer, eventually expanding her experience from utilities to full municipal services. Most recently, Lori served as the Chief Financial Officer for the city of Clarksville in Tennessee for the past 12 years. I just want to mention how fortunate, Littleton is to be an attractive place for high-quality professional staff, and Lori is just the latest addition to our team, who we're very excited and thankful to have with us. So, Council, I just want to introduce her tonight to you formally and to the public. I might ask her to just have a moment, a couple words herself.
I just want to say thank you for the ability to serve you all. I'm excited to be here in Colorado. I'm officially a Colorado resident as of Thursday. I closed on my house and my whole family is here. So I'm just looking forward to working with you all and serving the citizens of Littleton.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank
you. So a couple more things from me. Council, I want to just mention that the city's trying to work closely with residents of Euclid Avenue. I know that the city manager's office has had significant communication with Mr. Crines, who spoke tonight, and will continue to answer questions and have that dialogue so that as the project progresses, all are informed. And then finally, since we do have such a presence from the Rooted in Littleton group tonight, I will just announce for the public that over the past month or so, the city staff, the city attorney, and I have met with representatives from Rooted in Littleton, and it's taken some time to kind of process the city's options and have some conversations one-on-one with city council's members, because that's how we have to do it in our city structure and per our charter. So there are several questions. I know the city council is very engaged with that issue, and as we near the study session plan for next Tuesday, I just want to let that group know that they will have some response from me on behalf of the city, likely tomorrow. So that's where we are, and I know there are several outstanding questions, and it's just taking some time to work through them. That's all I have tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
City Attorney.
It seems like there's a ton of information to give, but no report tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, item 7, scheduled appearances. We have no scheduled appearances tonight. Item 8, consent agenda. A few items here. Consent agenda items can be adopted by a simple motion. All ordinances must be read by title prior to a vote on the motion. Any consent agenda item may be removed at the request of a council member. A, Resolution 60 of 2025, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Littleton and South Suburban Park and Recreation District regarding construction and maintenance of the County Line Road Shared Use Path Project. B, Resolution 61 of 2025, resolution approving a license agreement between the City of Littleton and Denver Water for construction on Denver Water property for the County Line Road Shared Use Path Connections Project. C, Resolution 62 of 2025, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Littleton and the Highlands Ranch Metropolitan District regarding construction and maintenance of the County Line Road Shared Use Path Project. D, Ordinance 13 of 2025, an ordinance on first reading approving amendments to the ULUC regarding master sign plan. E, ID 25149, motion to appoint 2 new members to the Aspen Grove Business Improvement District's Board of Directors. F, Resolution 69 of 2025, resolution to adopt the Colorado Communities for Climate Action, or CC4CA, policy statement and join the coalition. G, Resolution 74 of 2025, resolution approving a joint resolution of the City Councils of Inglewood, Littleton, and Sheridan, Colorado, requesting that the Regional Transportation District, RTD, establish a bus stop serving the Bridge House Ready to Work program located at 4675 South Windermere Street in Inglewood. H, ID 25152, motion to approve minutes of the June 3rd, 2025 regular City Council meeting. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolutions A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H.
They're not all resolutions, so if
No,
you could have them
all
approve
the-
the consent agenda in its entirety?
Yes, please, yes.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety. Any discussion, council? See no discussion. Voting is open.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you. Moving on, item 9, general business. We have a few items on general business. First up, what I thought everyone was here for in the first place was ID 25159, the 2024 Audit Report and Annual Comprehensive Financial Report Presentation. Someone turn it over to the city manager. We have the auditors coming up here.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll try to limit my remarks to the time that our staff and the auditors are approaching. Gentlemen, you may sit at the table there. Thanks. And I'll also invite our finance staff, Lori and Maria, if you could also come forward, please. Just be available close there. Mayor, my intro is brief because the audit of the city's financial statements is really your audit, and that's always an important point. So the council selected the audit firm of Plant Moran 2 years ago to perform an annual financial audit on the city's financial statements. And that has been completed, and I will just note, without stealing any thunder, that we're pleased to have this audit for you several months earlier this year and on schedule. So that's the first thing we'll say. And with that, I will turn it over to our auditors from Plant Moran, William Brickey and Josh Eady. Gentlemen.
Okay, thank you very much and good evening. And so as auditors and accountants, we usually do a pretty good job of clearing the room. So I like to see that trend continues. So as mentioned, we are here to talk about the audit for the year ended December 31, 2024. And we'll go through the presentation in just a moment, but just want to make a few brief comments first. So when we talk about the audit, really there's 3 separate deliverables that we have related to that. So we have the financial statements, which includes our opinion on it. And although included in the large annual comprehensive financial report is your single audit, but we also do a separate audit of the city's compliance with federal grants. And that's included in the large document on page 138 through 152. And then finally, we have our end of audit letter, really, which speaks to the audit process itself and some required communications there. So we have covered all of these documents in detail with management. And our goal tonight really is to go through our presentation and highlight some of the key information that's included in this document, since it is 150 plus pages long. Before we get started, just want to take a brief moment and really thank your entire team for all their help throughout the audit. You may or may not know that we actually start the audit in early April and we finish in late June. So it does take a lot of resources of the city to help us complete that. So we really appreciate all the assistance provided by Maria and Jim and Lori. She got to come in at the tail end of the audit, so she did get her first Littleton audit under her belt this year. But we really appreciate all the help that they provide to help us get this done timely. So what we'd like to do first is, just kind of, as I mentioned, when we talk about the audit, we're going to highlight here in our presentation really the 3 separate segments here: the financial statements, the required communications under the auditing standards, and then finally the audit of federal awards. So the first thing we just want to highlight here on this slide really just, kind of breaks down the components of the financial statements. So as I mentioned earlier, our audit report is included in the financial statements on page 14 through 16. The rest of the document really is prepared by management and is their document. We are just providing an opinion on whether the document is in compliance with the rules and regulations. And we have the page numbers here for the various sections. The management discussion and analysis, which is on page 17 through 27. This is a good thing to read that really breaks down all of the financial numbers into words and kind of is the communication piece from management to the users of the financial statement. So that's always something good to look at. And again, that's followed by the basic financial statements, which is the key numbers and related information there. And then it's kind of wrapped up with some statistical information, which really isn't audited, but included in there for reference. As I mentioned, our main deliverable to you as your auditor is our opinion on your financial statements. The city did receive what we refer to as an unmodified audit opinion, again in the current year, which essentially means the financial statements are in compliance with all the rules and regulations. It's the highest form of assurance we can provide, so we're happy to let you know that you did receive that unmodified opinion, again in the current year. We also, just to highlight, if there's new accounting standards that the city implemented, we like to highlight those. So there were 2 implemented in the current year by the city, 2 GASBs. These are Government Accounting Standards Board pronouncements. So GASB 100 related to accounting changes and GASB 101 related to compensated absences. I will let you know that neither one of these standards changes the way you budget or do your day-to-day operations. They're really more reporting items and really didn't have a significant effect, but again, they were implemented in the current year by the city. I'm going to turn it over to Josh, and he's going to continue going through the presentation here.
Thank you. So we'd move on then to the other deliverable that Bill had mentioned here, which is the end of audit letter. And if you recall, before the audit began, we would have sent out a letter that indicated our plan for the audit. This is the bookend to that. So if there were any deviations or anything that needed to be reported, that would be included in this letter. This slide, what you're looking for here are no's. So no transactions that didn't have authoritative guidance, no difficulties with management, things like that. So again, as Bill had mentioned, the audit went very well. So that's what we're looking for here. The next slide shows at the end of the financial statements was a single audit, as Bill mentioned, and there are a few things that we had to draw your attention to there. I do want to, before I start in these, remind you of the context of 2024, where partway through the year you lost your deputy finance director. At the end of the year, the finance director then departed, and as well as having the new ERP implementation of Workday. So there was a lot going on for the city this year that backs up what was happening. With that said, there are 2 items that we are bringing to your attention. The first one relates to bank reconciliations, and just during the year, those had not been completed timely, and so there were a few errors, and the cash pool did not net to 0. Now, I do want to point out that none of these were material issues. We did not encounter any material errors on these, but this is something that we wanted to draw to your attention. The second item then relates also to the ERP implementation. So this just relates to one issue where there are several accounts that are being created. So where you might have one account, there are multiple accounts that can be created that offset. And so in total, the balance is correct, but this creates complication and therefore room for error to be incurred. Now, I do want to point out that in the last 2 pages of that big, thick document, there is management's response in those. And I also want to point out that the city is working on these and, in our understanding, has already addressed some of these things in terms of bank recs and other items and is working with Workday to get these resolved. The next slide then shows things that we worked with the city throughout the audit. So the first is an adjustment that was made during the audit, and the other item here, the second bullet, major bullet there, is basically items that both we and management agree were immaterial to the financial statements as a whole, and so those are items that were not changed within the financial statements. The last item here then relates to that federal single audit. So again, as Bill had mentioned, because the city spent more than $750,000 in federal expenditures during the year, you are required to get what's called a single audit. And what this is an audit of the compliance with the rules and regulations for these funds. Now, you did have federal expenditures of $7.1 million in 2024. As a result, we tested 2 major programs. That would be the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds of $4.4 million, and then FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, of just under $1.5 million. Now, again, on this, we offer an opinion. This is an unmodified opinion, so again, highest level of assurance we can give that the city was in compliance with the rules and regulations related to these grants. And you'll note that we had no federal award findings. So again, no findings related to the compliance. So again, credit to the city. These are large and complicated grants, and there's a lot to do with them. So the fact that those are handled well with no findings is really a credit to the city's operations. That is the end of our prepared remarks, but happy to address any questions if you have any.
Council, any questions? Councilmember Grove?
Don't audit companies normally provide a summary report in the document that's easy to find? I couldn't find it. I finally found it now. It's on page 148 as part of it. But where's the summary that, other than in the presentation, that shows us these findings?
So I guess I maybe need a little clarity on your question. So
You have a 150-page document, and on page 148, there's financial audit findings,
yes.
but there's no summary of the unmodified opinion that you have on everything. I mean, that was hard to find.
And 148 is not a summary, it's talking about the findings itself.
Right,
I think
but-
she wants a Cliff's Notes of.
Yeah, there should be an overview letter that's right up front that tells us what's going on.
So obviously, the structure of I'll just say, the structure of this document is prescribed by the auditing standards, and we don't have the ability to put additional information in there. That's why we often come and present this document. Our opinion is, again, in the format that's required by the auditing standards, so apologies, but if there's another report, I'm not aware of it. This is the required format.
So there's no summary report.
There is
really,
no summary report.
So I think to alleviate Councilmember Grove's concern, is it possible, moving forward, to have a summary report outside the actual, I mean, like you have a presentation that's outside the actual report, just a one-pager, say, everything's good, we found these two things that are issues, they're working on it. I think just a high level, that's not necessarily reported, but just kind of a generic summary, so members of the public who may not be auditors or accountants could get through it quickly?
We can look into that. Again, and I haven't seen anything like that. Again, obviously with our professional standards requirements, kind of when we say things, we have to say them in the way that's required under the standards. And again, this presentation I know is in your packet. And again, if there's additional things we can put in the presentation to make it more clear, we're happy to do that. But again, of this document, I am providing you the opinion and the findings. The rest of it is all prepared by the city, and there are some summary information in there in that management discussion and analysis, but not anything that we would issue as your
I was going to, hold on a sec. The governance letter that you did provide as part of the packet actually does have a summary of the material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, significant weaknesses. So there is a letter that is attached to that packet that it may not have quite the summation of the findings of it, but that does actually kind of highlight the major categorical areas of investigation.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it doesn't tell what's wrong. As somebody on city council who's not a financial person, but I have read financial statements, it's very difficult for us to read and prepare what is actually going on without the presentation. And it seems to me there should be some overview, but that's just my personal opinion. It was hard to go through 150 pages trying to find the summary. I finally found it in the packet, in the presentation, but that's just a personal opinion. I don't know if anybody feels the same way.
Mayor Pro Tem, you had questions?
Yeah, with regards to some of the findings, I'll have comments later on the bank reconciliation portion of it, just for us as a team and city staff in terms of mitigation efforts into the future. But I had a question about the building fund finding, whether it was classified as enterprise or not, and how that determination was kind of made by your team, and where we are towing the line as an enterprise fund and where we're not. I guess I was kind of confused about how that was a gray area.
So the way we interpret what's going on in that fund, it appears to us it should be classified as a governmental fund. And the city's always classified it as a business type fund. And that's an area where we've said, based on what we know and how we read the standard, we believe it should be in a different classification. Again, not saying the numbers are wrong, just moving the location. And we have not been provided like an analysis that says it's absolutely a business type. And again, it wasn't material enough to we say, boy, if you don't change this, you're not going to get the unmodified opinion. But again, we are required to report to you anything that we find that's more than insignificant. And so falls in that realm where this is something we'd say, we don't think it really feels like an enterprise fund, but again, it's not significant enough for us to change our opinion, but maybe something you'd want to look into or have management look into.
Well, I have a follow-up, go ahead, yeah.
So it's been classified as an enterprise fund and not raised concerns for prior auditors, but it raised concerns for you?
That's correct.
So there's literally a conflict between the auditors that, in their opinions on whether it's classified correctly?
Well, and again, with the other auditors, I haven't reviewed, again, and we have not said this is a material weakness or.
Yeah, no, I understand. We're not in financial jeopardy, but it feels, I guess it just doesn't feel, it feels like we're having a conflict between auditors about something that may not really be that important.
Well, and that's why I think it's under that kind of, I'd say, more insignificant section. But again, and we'd be happy to discuss with city staff on how we read the standard and, to see if, maybe there's something going on in that fund that we don't understand. But again, when we brought this up last year, there wasn't anything provided to us that we say, oh, yes, we see, we understand. And again, that's why we say, not significant, but we just have to bring it to your attention. And you could decide, as a group, no, we feel it's properly classified and we're not going to change our opinion. And again, it's under that kind of insignificant area.
I guess a follow-up question to that with staff, I don't know who to ask. Would that have to be based on Tabor? And is there, I know.
First, Mayor, if I may, I'd like to introduce our interim Deputy Finance Director, Maria Ostrom, who has been with us on a temporary basis, long experience with executive finance and accounting work. I will say more in thanks in a few moments, but if you could speak to this issue and just as you encountered this fund, how it performed or what the activity was and how you see it. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Yes,
You need to turn the mic on. It's on this stem, I believe. There.
Is that better? Thank you.
Ish?
Better-ish. Thank you. I appreciate that. This comment was a bit of a surprise to me, although it may have been mentioned in '23, a year ago, to someone else. I just learned of it, but I did some research because I thought, maybe we've got it wrong. Maybe Littleton got it wrong all these years, right? You had a couple of different auditors for the past 2 decades, 2 different firms, and it wasn't mentioned then. And so I wanted to really do a deep dive and think about it. You are correct, Mayor. I think you're the one that mentioned Tabor. There is a Tabor consideration. And in reading Tabor law, I believe there's only one case that's been litigated. It meets the requirements to be an enterprise fund. And then in reading GASB, the governing board accounting standards, it seems like it could be classified as an enterprise fund. I don't know that it's wrong, but it's not a bad idea to have a discussion. And I don't know that the city would change how they present it. The fund itself it's fully supported by a fee, right, charged to the city for rent on a building. And it's self-supporting. It does not impose taxes. An enterprise fund cannot levy taxes. It levies no taxes. And furthermore, I believe in 1995, the Colorado Attorney General wrote an opinion that said, even a fund that services only exclusively a single government and operates kind of like what you would call an internal service fund can be an enterprise fund. So it seems like it's okay, but a dialogue isn't bad. And like the auditor stated, I don't think they're saying concretely it's wrong. They just question whether or not it should be an enterprise fund. In all my research and looking into it since reading their comment, I think it's okay to be classified as an enterprise fund.
I just had one question, speaking to the material weakness and this deficiency, that second one, that was a significant deficiency. And, you know, and I was reading the definition that it has to do with, you know, with an internal process. You know, looking at that, when talking to staff, it seemed to be that the correction for that was with the software provider. And so I don't know how, and I mean, I understand there was an issue, how things were being coded in there, and they're creating different accounts. But if a outside solution seems to contradict the idea of an internal control creating a deficiency, can you speak to that?
Sure. I think, you know, the way we look at that is, you know, although, you know, again, Workday is going to be involved in correcting it, you know, it's your system. And, you know, I understand in implementation, there's a lot of things that have to happen there. But again, given the number of accounts that we were dealing with, and again, it wasn't, you know, clear that it had been corrected, we felt we needed to bring it to your attention. And again, with things like this, again, unmodified opinion, no problem there. These are things that we bring to your attention, and as a governing body, you can say, we disagree with you, auditors, and we think it's fine as it is, and you don't have to take any action. But again, it's our job to say, we think this is an issue, and you can choose to correct it or not. And again, in this situation, although you have to work through Workday, just because it's part of their system issue, we still feel it's the city, under the city's control to make sure that it's, you know, properly, you know, accounted for in the general ledger system.
Okay. I'm not disputing the fact that
Yeah.
something needed to be done and fixed. I was just, I mean, I'm not an accountant, an auditor. I don't know. I mean, all the definitions are very specific, and so that's all I was getting at. I mean,
Okay.
I'm, you know, no one will say that I'm not also hypercritical, so I'm always focused on the things that can be improved.
Sure.
So, yeah, things that can be improved. I was just wondering about the distinction between an internal control versus something that maybe wasn't actually controlled internally, but perhaps should have been identified, say, hey, something's going on here.
Right.
How do we fix it? So I'm glad we at least saw that and now can move forward and fix it. But yeah, I do want to commend you for, you know, being very critical and looking through with a nice a magnifying glass at everything here, but also that the city staff did a good, or the city itself did a good job, and you know, unmodified opinion is what we're looking for. So thank you for all that.
Mayor,
City
while
Manager.
we're on this point, if I could ask Lori just to comment, because I know she was alerted to this in her first days here and can comment on the staff's response to the point you just asked about.
Yeah, on both of the findings, thanks to Maria, who got the staff up to speed on a lot of it. The bank reconciliations are done timely. As a matter of fact, we're already done with June's bank reconciliation, and we'll stay on track with that. We're cross-training our staff to make sure this never happens again. That should be one thing that should never fall through the cracks, because if your bank reconciliation isn't correct, how do you know your financial statements are correct? So that's being cross-trained, and it's already in place. We're working with CVS is the vendor that, the implementer for Workday. We have a work ticket in for them to fix our pooled cash account. So we've told them if it drop dead date that it has to be fixed by August 31st. So that's the date we're targeting there. We have a temporary fix in place now where we are looking at it and we're manually correcting the fund balance, the pooled cash fund, every month to make sure everything's balanced. But we want the system to do it automatically. That's how it's supposed to happen. So that's what we're trying to get fixed. And then for the second finding, that's where it's creating multiple accounts, and debits and credits kind of cancel themselves out on the receivable side. We have a work ticket in with CVS as well on that one. And again, we told them August 31st is the drop dead date to have that corrected by. So I have an accountant working with them as well as myself.
Great, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem? Anyone else, anybody else have any?
I just have comments.
Any other questions? Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, well, Lori, thank you for diffusing my comment before I laid it on the city staff. But just wanted to say, first off, thank you to Plant Moran for noting some of the kind of efficiencies that can be gained in warding off potential future conflicts in terms of accounting or overly complex accounting procedure in our new system. You know, we're building it, and we appreciate the third-party outlook and appreciate the work that you did. Also, I'm going to lead off saying that single audit finding that's clean, having a FEMA program being tested is actually pretty great. So kudos to the staff for actually contracting, procurement, and whatnot going as smoothly as it did, because honestly, those projects, just from a implementation standpoint, tend to have corners cut. And I honestly am so happy that the staff and the team up and down the board have taken the time to actually work on that process internally, because testing a FEMA program and coming out clean is actually great. And so I'm excited. So now my chastising or complaint. Lori, you already addressed it with regards to bank reconciliation. Can we have a follow-up memo from the city manager's office saying how we have overlapping coverage in terms of bank reconciliation statements into the future? When I saw that we hadn't had those statements reconciled for about 6 months, I don't know if folks in the public, in the public know what that means, but essentially that is kind of your last ditch catch on, does the cash match the things that we are doing? It is like one of those last ditch efforts that you have to make sure that if that reconciliation is not happening, there could be potentially, and there wasn't in this case, fraud that is perpetuated month over month over month. And it is so important that it has to be on a monthly cycle in order to catch, maybe not fraud, could just be poor practice being perpetuated day over day. So I was really concerned about this. I understand that we have a new team in place. There was a lot of transition, ERP, but that's one of those things we cannot let go again in the future. So a memo saying what those mitigation efforts are in more detail would be very much appreciated.
Council, any other comments? Anyone would like to make? City manager?
I can, yes, please, if I may. First of all, I'd like to just, let the council know that I, as city manager, take any findings for our audit seriously, and as soon as I hear about them, I'm following up with staff. I will speak to, I think, especially the finding on delayed bank reconciliations is the probably most fundamental manifestation of the extreme year that we had in 2024. I'll just say that the former finance director was alerted me to the fact that we were falling behind early in last year. We took measures to hire temporary staff to help us stay on top of those, and then had further disruption in that availability. I will note that that temporary staff member has actually come back and has helped us to immediately get caught up when Maria started, and train our current staff so that we do have that cross-training on our staff. So, we were certainly tested last year with the Workday ERP implementation, and I'm very grateful to our staff for the way that they persevered through that project. We now have a much more functional working ERP, and I'm proud of the staff for the clean audit opinion that we heard tonight, and we are grateful. I want to say I'm grateful to our auditors too for pointing up, anything in our system that can be improved. And as we heard, a couple of their comments have pointed up and I think heightened the importance for those fixes, the punch list items in the Workday system. If I may, Mayor, I would like to, in addition to thanking our whole finance department staff, Maria Ostrom joined our team in January, which is, after the close of the year, and immediately embraced our staff and all of our financials. It's hard for me to even convey how challenging that is, coming into a new system, learning the software as the staff is still adapting to the software for the first time for year-end close, completing the close, training our staff on so many ways, mentoring and developing them, and ensuring that we have the audit complete by June 30th. That's a fairly Herculean effort. I want to thank Maria very, very sincerely for the Yo-Person's work that she's done for the city of Littleton. And, I am grateful, I know we're all grateful for your work and the way that she has kind of handed off to Lori over the past month. Maria is completing her time with the city of Littleton, and I know we've been fortunate to have her, and anyone else who will have an opportunity to will have that same fortune. So thank you very much, Maria.
Council, anyone like to make a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve ID number 25-159, the 2024 audit report and annual comprehensive financial report.
Second.
Approval.
Oh, sorry, I had the wrong thing up. There was no motion
I was gonna say,
required.
there
I was on the next item. That was my bad. I saw a motion.
I'd like to rescind whatever I just said.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No one wanted to tell me? We're going to take a 5-minute recess here. Sorry. All right, we are back at 8:14. Now we are on Resolution 67, which will require a motion. But we have Resolution 67, Resolution 66, and Resolution 65, all related to the city ditch. We're going to have one presentation, and then we'll consider each of the resolutions independently. So I just want to read the titles there. Resolution 67, approving relinquishment of and grant of easements for the city ditch. Resolution 65, approving an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Inglewood for the city ditch project. And Resolution 66, approving a temporary construction easement agreement with the city of Inglewood for the city ditch project. Well, I guess there's four then. Resolution 68 as well, approving a quitclaim deed for city ditch. So we'll turn it over to staff for the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. This item tonight is one of the last steps for the for our city's part in moving toward Englewood's project to pipe the city ditch in the interest of their water supply. I'll just say that we had a study session on this project. We went into a lot of depth on a lot of issues on June 16th. At that meeting, I'll just note that the council gave some direction, some, authority to move forward with the flumes in a way that would preserve them, but also demolish most of the flumes there. I'll just note that since then, staff has spent time with the Historic Preservation Board and also Historic Littleton, Inc., and also really worked with our historic preservation planner, senior planner in community development on alternatives there, and we have one for you tonight that you'll hear about. I'll note that our request for you tonight is to consider these agreements because they are really what is most important to allow Englewood to move forward with their project. But we'll also welcome council's final kind of direction on the flumes because we have a recommendation for you tonight, and I think you'll have more there to consider. So I will leave it at that and turn it over to our capable staff from Public Works and Community Development to give an overview of kind of the project and these agreements before you tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Brent Soderlin, Director of Public Works and Utilities. I think the only thing I'll add to what Jim just mentioned was that we also have Clifford Stevens here. He's staff with the City of Inglewood. He's their engineering supervisor for the Utilities Department. So Cliff is sitting right behind me. So if we have questions for Inglewood, he can give their perspective and weigh in. So what I'll do now is just turn the presentation over to Sarah to get started here.
Here we go. Good evening, everyone. We're going to start with a little bit, kind of here for the overview, just kind of a quick context of City Ditch, and then some of the recommendations that came out of the HPC study session. So as we know, City Ditch is a 26-mile irrigation canal or ditch and conveys water through Littleton, Inglewood, and up through Denver. And it's about 4 feet deep, 6 feet wide, and was constructed by Capital Hydraulic Company. This construction began in 1861, but was stalled due to the Civil War and was actually started at a location about 4 miles north of its current location at Chatfield Reservoir. Construction, as I mentioned, did stop, but did begin back again in 1864 and was ultimately completed in 1867. To bring it a little more specific for Littleton, Richard Little, founder of this city, was actually hired to survey the ditch, and he was one who kind of, in resurveying, found that the original start was ineffective. The city ditch ultimately allowed for greater development in the region, allowed for the development to, or the region to effectively develop, and kind of effectively grow to what it is today. Utilizing kind of a little bit more of Littleton history, being able to utilize that abandoned piece of the ditch, Richard Little actually opened the Rough and Ready Mill using that piece. That's actually a picture right up there of the mill. And in opening this mill. Eventually, he opened in 1867, eventually founded Littleton in 1872, and then, as we know, was incorporated in 1890. So it was a major start to the city, not only related to the founder, but the kind of inception of Littleton as we know today. This is just kind of a map showing kind of where the ditch runs along kind of that eastern side of the railroad. You can actually see that the Rough and Ready Mill, that's kind of that original start point, was very close to downtown Littleton, and part of the reason Richard Little started to kind of plat in that area to begin with. Looking more specifically at the flume, as we know, flumes are kind of a bridge for the water. This was a gravity-fed ditch, and so to kind of deal with issues within terrain, things like a gulch or even streams, these flumes or bridges were created in order to continue to convey the water. They would have originally been constructed out of wood, based primarily on ease of access and cost of material. Eventually, as steel became easier to come by, they were often replaced. This one specifically was replaced in about the 1940s. It is currently located today in Slaughterhouse Gulch Park, which is just north of Powers Avenue. So after a very, very quick brief history, wanted to look at kind of some of the kind of different opportunities or kind of preservation options that we discussed at the HPC. Really, first thing to note, the ditch and this flume structure has a high level of historic significance, not only for the state and region, as the city ditch, as is often noted, is the oldest working thing in the region, definitely the oldest kind of structure and historic site in the city. So it holds a lot of significance regionally as well as for the history of the city. And then because it's still in use, it's still functioning today, it has a high level of integrity, hasn't had very many changes. The steel flume itself is of age and has gained its own amount of significance and integrity. So definitely very historically significant. And from kind of a historic preservation tool kind of piece, that significance and integrity are very important in kind of proving the significance and importance of a resource. So looking at those opportunities and options for preservation, kind of starting first, absolute kind of best option, which would be to preserve the ditch and the flume structure in place. This allows for folks to kind of experience the full structure, to see how it would have been connected, to have those interpretation materials and the structure there in front of you really gives you a clear picture and understanding of not only how this unique structure that a lot of people aren't necessarily know about and is definitely unique to kind of the climate here in Colorado, but also just the broader history of not only the city, but the region. So it's a really big opportunity to kind of celebrate the city's history with a really unique feature. Kind of stepping down would be saving maybe a piece of the flume kind of in place. You get to tell some of that story, but that impact is lost. You're relying a lot more on kind of that written interpretation material to tell that full story. And then the last option is kind of a better than fully demolishing it, but is not really a best practice kind of preservation option, which would be to keep a piece and or remove it from its original location. Again, gives you some opportunity to tell that story, but by losing where it's located, you're really losing a lot of that impact and importance and getting to really see how something kind of connects in this space. It's also currently located in a park. So you're also losing an opportunity to kind of create a historic park and a kind of upgrading an amenity for residents as well as visitors. So these were kind of the three options kind of from a preservation standpoint that were discussed. And moving on kind of to the recommendations specifically from the study session. So as Jim mentioned, we were able to meet with the HPC, both Littleton staff as well as Inglewood, to discuss kind of that similar history and the current project and everything that's going on, and wanting to get their thoughts and recommendations. The first being that they definitely would love involvement on projects like this that are dealing with potentially historic sites, structures, and buildings. They act as a recommending body or an advocating body for preservation. It doesn't have to just be on completely designated structures. So they would love opportunity to kind of provide input earlier on in processes. Ultimately, that final recommendation was to keep the flume structure in place, to try and stabilize it, to really give time for further planning, to really determine how best to preserve the structure, and celebrate it. I mentioned that kind of interpretive signage is a really common way, but are there other opportunities, things to look at? So this, by keeping the structure and kind of stabilizing it, you do allow for that time for that further study to potentially really be able to celebrate a really unique kind of feature for the city. So that is all I've got, so I'll hand it off to Ryan. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm going to go through a quick recap of some of the content you've seen from the two study sessions we've been with you previously, and then also walk through the agreements real quick again, since there's been a modification to the IGA specifically. So the pictures on the screen here we presented to you back in April. This is from the condition assessment that the consultant did for us that we hired to assess the flume to see what kind of condition it's in. So just as a reminder, we have corrosion, there's anchor bolts missing, that picture in the top center, there's concrete scaling, and then that pier in the bottom right has that since been fixed by Inglewood, but that was undermined to the point where there's about 10% bearing capacity left. And the consultant also provided us with costs, which we showed you in April as well. I want to point out option 2A. That is a new line that's been added to this table since we presented to you back in April. The other options were to remove with the Inglewood project, and then the other varying cost levels with repair and maintain in place, which is what option 2. One thing I want to point out with option 2 is to repair it to the point where it's functional. So that would be carrying water still. So I want to make sure that's clear why that one is so much more expensive than option 2A. Option 2A is to stabilize in place, which basically addresses those structural things I noted as far as the missing anchor bolts, the scaled concrete, and then some of the steel members that are damaged and need to be repaired. So we're able to do that restoration or that stabilization basically structurally for about $50,000. And then over the course of 10 years, there needs to be ongoing maintenance to make like inspections and things like that to make sure that we keep it in condition. So especially since it's over a pedestrian trail.
I have a question on this slide,
Yep.
if it's okay. The question is, why wasn't that option included in the first place? We knew water was not going to be flowing through it, so why was option 2 to have water flowing through it?
Yeah, so the assessment that we had done with the consultant was to look at, I guess, its current functionality. That's what we had them do. At the time, we didn't actually have them do this very base level analysis to say that don't paint it, don't make it look nice, just leave it as it is. And so based on the feedback we got from folks that we talked to over the course of the last 3 months, that's why we added this in at that point, because I think at one point there was an understanding we wanted to have it to look aesthetically pleasing as well.
Well, I think moving forward for not just historic preservation things, but other stuff, I think, the options that were presented by staff, we need to also include that bare minimum, just to let us know, like, hey, this is sufficient, but bare minimum, because if we're said here, you can have a golden, chalice or a platinum one, well, maybe just a porcelain one or a glass one will work, but if we're not given that information, that's how we're making decisions, so.
Yeah, understood.
Is that stabilization for the entire section of that flume or just a small piece of it?
That's for the full.
So leaving it as
full
is,
span.
just,
Yep.
good.
Yep, and I will say that's the basic. There may be some additional cost that would go above and beyond that number right there. So I just want to make sure it's clear that this is like the very minimum, like just keep it standing kind of estimate.
Councilmember Rickert.
Well, I would say, Mr. Mayor, we have had members of the public recommend that we continue to flow water through the flume as an option. So I agree it's probably not our top priority, but it has at least been suggested to us as an option. And, I think, I appreciate the bare minimum, but I have anxiety about safety, and because I just think there's going to be a ton of kids crawling all over that thing, the more people are in the park. And so, while I appreciate these, we need to know the scale of magnitude we're costing out. I think there's going to be some cost that is somewhere in between. If we choose to leave it, it's going to be more than what's there, but probably less than the golden chalice.
Couldn't come up with a better analogy,
Yeah.
sorry about that.
The Holy Grail.
There you go, Councilmember Grove.
So stabilizing it makes it safe. it's not going to fall on anyone's head as they're walking under it. How much, did we talk a little bit about, making it a little bit pretty, a little bit better so you don't have all these rust things? I mean, did you talk to the consultant about how much that costs, or can you guess?
So we did have a cost, and actually the cost of painting the flume was one of the bigger line items in that original estimate from the one that's shown in option 2. So the cost to fully paint it and restore it increases the cost pretty quickly.
To what?
So it's going to be somewhere less than the $640,000 you see on the screen for option 2, but it's going to be somewhere probably around $500-ish thousand, depending on what kind of restoration is done to it.
But if you don't carry water, if you're just trying to keep it safe, that seems like an
It
exorbitant
was
price.
lead-based paint remediation, that was the high
Yeah,
expense there.
that's
so,
correct.
yeah.
So it's somewhere between 150 and 500,000. Let's give you a range.
Okay.
I think you continue now.
Okay, so you actually started talking on a couple of the things that are on this next slide. So those costs to repair to be fully functional and maintained in place are high, which is option 2. We have found some potential options for some limited grant funding through the state and maybe even through the Arapahoe County Open Space Fund. We'll have to investigate those in more detail, though, to see if they're viable or not to stabilize and restore the flume in place. There are concerns around safety with regard to people climbing into it, all those kinds of things, and also maintenance costs with regard to graffiti removal and things like that. And then it's the ongoing other costs we would have if we want to do something about the rust that's on the structure itself. So those costs would increase if it's left in place. The cost to relocate the flumes, which is option 3, I think those are not even on the table for consideration anymore, but those are pretty high if we want to relocate large portions of the flume to another location. And then if we do relocate it somewhere else, it would need to be secured for safety purposes as well. So walking through the 4 agreements real quick, and I'll go through these quickly because you've seen most of this detail before. This slide here shows you the order that they are presented in the agenda tonight, starting first with the permanent easement. And so this agreement, a couple things it does. It first relinquishes the old easement along the current alignment of the ditch, and then also establishes a new easement for the new, more straight alignment that goes straight through the park. One thing I want to note on the 3rd bullet is that it does limit Inglewood's requirement to restore the abandoned ditch. So I know you all have seen concepts provided about vegetative swales. This agreement would not allow for Inglewood, it does not require Inglewood to do a vegetative swale as a part of the restoration. What it does allow for in the IGA, though, is for the bank stabilization, which I'll talk about in a minute. This agreement also designates the allowed activities for Inglewood and Littleton within that permanent easement area. So it gives our staff permission to be able to enter Inglewood's easement to do maintenance on any of our utility lines that cross through the city ditch, under the city ditch pipe, I guess I should say. And it also specifies restoration requirements in the new easement area. So for instance, if Inglewood needs to dig up the pipe, they would be required to restore the surface back to the condition it was in with regard to the vegetation piece of it that would be removed if they were to dig up the pipe for some reason. The maintenance agreement, or the intergovernmental agreement, I should say, it's effective during construction, and it has a tree mitigation fee. So with the new alignment that goes across the Slaughterhouse Gulch Park, there are several trees adjacent to the gulch that are going to need to be removed or will be removed as part of the piping project. And so Inglewood will be paying Littleton $216,000 roughly for the tree mitigation fee for the removal of those trees. It also requires the stabilization of the ditch bank, which the areas on the bottom left there that are highlighted in yellow, that's where the bank stabilization would be occurring, with the cross-section in the top left showing you generally what the stabilization would look like. We also have a photo. This picture is from the portion of the abandoned city ditch that's to the west of the Littleton Cemetery. This was piped many years ago at this point, but this gives you an idea of what a bank stabilization would look like. You can see the ditch down there at the bottom, but the native grasses have taken hold and have filled in very nicely along that portion of the abandoned ditch. And this is an example of what it would look like in lieu of a vegetative swale. This is not a vegetative swale, just so everyone's clear on that. The last bullet here is the new modification to the IGA that has been made since we last presented this to you back in May. So we have the language in there still that preserves a section of the flume and removes the remaining structure with the Inglewood project. But now there's an or statement in there as well, which you heard during the public comment, that allows for the city of Inglewood to reimburse Littleton up to $100,000 for historic preservation purposes, or if for some reason we decide to remove the structure in the future, we have the ability to be able to use that $100,000 for removal as well. So there is a lot of flexibility built into the IGA now to allow us options with regard to give us time on how we want to proceed forward with the flume. There are a couple of pictures or renderings that were provided to us by a resident in that same email that you saw the vegetative swale. So I wanted to share those with you as well. It's concepts, or it gives you some renderings of what it would look like with and without the flume structure in place. So this is looking to the northwest with the flume in place, and then what it might look like without. And then looking back to the east, southeast with the trail heading towards Windermere. This is what it looks like with it in place and then without. We had agreed to show those just to kind of give you all an idea from a concept perspective of what it might look like if we do remove the flume in Slaughterhouse Gulch Park. All right, the third agreement is the temporary construction easement, and it basically gives Inglewood and their contractor permission during construction only to have access to Littleton property within the Slaughterhouse Gulch Park. It also gives permission for them to stage equipment and materials in there. It also outlines insurance requirements that Littleton would expect of the Inglewood contractor, and then also has surface restoration requirements to be for the Inglewood project to put the surface of Slaughterhouse Gulch Park back to its current condition after the construction equipment and materials leave the park.
I have a question, just somewhat about this, maybe not specifically. What's going to be the neighborhood notification with the construction? Are they going to have constructed equipment like parked on the street? I mean, are we going to notify, is Inglewood going to be required to notify the neighbors in that immediate area right there?
Yeah, and I guess Cliff maybe can answer that question better, but I think there would be public notification.
Yes, we will have, the contractor will have to do public notification. Sorry. So yes, the contractor is required to do public notification. We had a community meeting last week and invited people within a certain vicinity of the ditch to talk them through what that construction looks like. There's one street that's affected, and it is the one that goes by the apartments to the north side of this.
Prescott?
Here. I can't think of the name of the street. And so it's where the ditch is right adjacent to the street, so we will be affecting that street. The rest of it is through the park pretty much, so it doesn't really affect traffic.
I think it is Prescott.
It's Crestline.
Oh, Crestline.
Crestline.
Crestline. Good.
Thank you.
All right. The quitclaim deed is the last agreement. That one is recorded along with the easement relinquishment, or I guess once the easement relinquishment is approved. It releases Inglewood's responsibilities of the area that's shown in purple on the map here, and then anything, both ditch or flume, that remains within that purple area after the quitclaim deed is filed becomes the responsibility of the city of Littleton to own and maintain. The one thing I wanted to note, I know the question had been asked, I think, last time about when the quitclaim deed will be filed, and that's once the pipe is operational. So it won't be until the very end of the project, which is going to be sometime in the first half of 2026. So that quitclaim deed won't be officially filed with the county until that point in time. A couple upcoming milestones, and I guess the first bullet is tonight. So we're here with you tonight, giving the presentation of the 4 agreement resolutions. The construction is going to be starting this summer. I think, if I remember right, the Inglewood is going to be taking these agreements to their council on July 21st. So very soon after that, they should be able to start construction. And then through the summer and fall of this year, our intent is to go back to HPC and others to have further discussion regarding preservation and commemoration of the flume and the ditch, to even talk about the ideas that we would potentially implement, including a historic walk, the signage, and those kinds of things that we would potentially want to include with any type of a preservation or commemoration project. And then the last bullet there is about in late fall or early winter is when the flume structure, if we want it removed with the Inglewood project, would need to be removed, would need to be sometime in that time frame or that window right there, or as the option allows within the IGA, left in place for the City of Littleton to proceed forward with doing additional structural stabilization and maybe other additional study on how to best commemorate and preserve it. And so staff's recommended action tonight is that, so we recommend that City Council approve all 4 of the agreements via resolution. We do think over the course of the last 3 months, we've heard a lot from a lot of different people on their inputs on whether or not we should keep the flume, remove the flume. And so I think we found a good balance at this point, and provide some flexibility also for the city to be able to proceed forward in the best way possible, to be able to allow us the options that we need to be able to commemorate or preserve the flume. And then also have that bank stabilization piece in the agreement to make sure that we help to preserve or protect private property against a failing bank slope, while also not completely filling the ditch in, which would undermine the historic connectivity if we were to put a vegetative swale in place. And so with that, I think we're open for questions.
Council, any questions? Councilmember Reichert.
Thank you very much for all the work. I'm going to kind of repeat what you just said at the end of your statement to make sure I understand. So the current plan is to preserve the ditch, but we're going to do some infill in the ditch part to kind of prop up the backyards of people whose yards have been lost to the flow. But there'll be a ditch there, it'll stay. The option of a vegetative swale is really to fill the ditch.
Yes.
And put vegetation there. And so the recommendation of the resident to put in a vegetated swale kind of goes against the recommendation of people who want to preserve the ditch.
That's correct.
So that's the trade-off is vegetated swale or preserve the ditch. This is kind of a minute thing, but last time I was looking at the ditch, there's like concrete and just stuff in there. Are we going to leave that kind of debris or and maybe you don't know the answer to that. There's just it's messy.
Yeah, I guess, and I'm not sure exactly where that concrete you're seeing is in the ditch, but as part of that bank stabilization, it's possible that concrete would be removed when they're in there doing the stabilization work.
Okay. And then I have a question thank you very much, for the city manager. So what is the process that you're proposing that we use to decide on whether we keep this flume or move it on, and implied in that question is why are we not deciding that today?
Yes, Councilmember, thank you. I think, the primary purpose tonight was to present these ideas, but I do want to be clear that, staff has done the additional research. We are not planning at this point to come back to you again for further direction on the flume. So we can certainly do that if council has more questions, although I'll also want to clarify that with the new research that we've done on cost and that cost option 2A, we do think that it's affordable to stabilize the flume where it is. We also appreciate the input of HPB and the others that we've heard from, and that it's appropriate to commemorate, to preserve the flume in place. Acknowledging, though, we do want to follow up on the questions about safety. We will be looking at measures to, keep the flume certainly visible, but we do want to make sure that it is safe from folks who might want to climb on it or otherwise interact with it like that. But I think with the $100,000 of reimbursement from Englewood, we have some room, if it's council's wish, to preserve the flume, we think that that's appropriate and would be, you know, that it is important history to preserve. So that we would take, you know, council's direction, but that is what we think is a really good treatment here.
So can I repeat back to you what I think you said? I think you just said, if council wants to get rid of the flume, a council member needs to make some sort of motion to get rid of the flume, and he or she needs 4 votes. And if a council member does not make that motion, then it is assumed that the flume will be preserved unless we run into some financial difficulty in the future.
I think given the amount of discussion that we've had on this, staff would appreciate a motion either way.
So at some point, maybe after we approve these 4 things we have already, we need to do something separate
Yes.
where we, okay.
Yeah, I will say though, since we weren't, you know, exceptionally clear that that was the purpose tonight, if you have more questions, you know, we can schedule another discussion. I don't want to stop that.
I don't want to have another
but,
discussion. I just want to know how we decide.
Yes.
That's really what
we
I
would
wanna
like clarity from council if you're ready for that tonight. We would take that for sure.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I also want to point out, Councilmember, that like this is, you know, upon approving these agreements, and Cliff, sorry, we're not trying to hold your project hostage, but this is actually kind of the last point of decision-making that our council has with regards to financial contributions from the city of Inglewood regarding what capital work can be done for either preservation or bank stabilization or building a swale. So I would say, once we make once we approve these 4 agreements, we no longer have a way to then go back to the city of Inglewood and say, please, sir, can I have some more? $100,000 is what we get. But I am assuming that $100,000, which, by the way, city of Inglewood, thank you so much. We appreciate your contribution to the effort. It is truly meaningful. I assume that is like, that's what is available in the project budget. It seems like you all have had those discussions internally, correct?
Yeah, I would say so. We've a lot of back and forth to get to the point where we are right now, to get the language written the way that it is.
I think he just said I squeezed as much out of him as I could get.
I got a question about this for the city attorney. I don't know if this is messier or if it's easier, if it would be to just amend the IGA to remove on item, what is that, 3J, where it says demolish or preserve, to just strike the words demolish or, and then whatever words that, and yeah, subsection I.
It's probably messier in the sense that I believe the city of Inglewood has already approved this agreement. So if we're making amendments to it, that would then be something.
That's why I asked the question.
So probably just providing the direction in some fashion.
So just a motion to say that it would be council's direction to preserve it in
Correct.
place if that is the desire.
And we would do that after approving the 4.
You do it after the 4 or after the IGA directly.
No, I'm not trying to blow anything up this time. I do have one other question, though, for the city manager. I am very interested in the kind of the process for how we're going to get to the signage. I think that's super important. And so this may not be the right time, but I would love to get an update on kind of how we're going to do that, because I think that's I think I'm one of those nerds that reads all the signs, and so I want to make sure we have good signs.
Yes, and we're looking to, I think, you know, we're eager to get back with the HPC and potentially HLI for some organic discussion, you know, about that. So we've not prescribed that at this point, but we've tried to outline for you tonight that we think that that's really an opportunity for us. And we want to engage the folks who can help us do that better than we can do without them.
So, council colleagues, I would recommend that if we're going to do a motion, we do it after we do the 4s, just so we can, that's my recommendation.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, it's on the bank stabilization side of things. You mentioned, actually, it was mentioned that there are other locations where the ditch has had that bank stabilization in place. Is that kind of like regrading out so you don't have steep kind of failing slope and shading? Is that a pretty decent summary of what that stabilization looks like and the vegetation that goes along with it?
Yeah, so the picture I had showed during the presentation, that's an example of where Inglewood had done some stabilization on the bank next to the cemetery there. And so the slope is more gentle than some of the other portions of the ditch that are currently in use. And then with that, they also did some seeding with it to help the native grasses establish themselves.
Okay. Following on this, essentially what I want to avoid is that the ditch in and of itself becomes some sort of nuisance in terms of ponding of water and stuff like that, mosquito breeding ground, all that kind of stuff. Are we seeing that impact anywhere else in the ditch where we've had the bank stabilization in place, complaints from neighbors, any other nuisances that are kind of forming? Is that, Brent, I'm kind of looking at you just because you probably would have received those comments.
Well, I'll address particularly where the city ditch to Slaughterhouse Gulch. So I'm not anticipating that we're going to have a lot of storm water that will actually enter the city ditch. There's actually storm sewer for the surrounding neighborhood and the bus barn that actually goes to Slaughterhouse Gulch. So I guess I'm not anticipating that we're going to, have like a wetland or anything like that with the ditch.
Okay, that was kind of my primary concern, but I'm feeling much more confident now that stabilizing the banks, as long as there's kind of decent amount of exposure, infiltration into it, that we don't have standing water there for weeks on end, that I'm more confident moving forward in that direction. So that's it for me.
Other questions? Anybody want to make any just general comments? We can do specific ones for each resolution, but feel free to make comments about the item in whole. Councilmember Grove?
When I first became involved with HPB, now HPC, I had no understanding of the city ditch. Like, what is this thing? And it's so important, as Sarah mentioned, to our history. Kudos to the city manager's office and Brent and community development and the city of Inglewood to come up with a solution where it was cost effective for us to keep the flume. I think it's important what was said, that it stay in its location and it's in context. This thing has stood for 80 years. Hopefully it's not going to fall down tomorrow. And as a real proponent of the history of our city, once you get rid of something, it's gone forever. You can't bring it back. So I'm really thrilled that there's a interest in maintaining it. I hope my fellow council members will support the 2A option. I know I will, in terms of when we get to the point of a motion. So thank you to everyone for doing this. I know it's important to many of our citizens.
Councilmember Zink?
Thank you. I have spent quite a bit of time since our last study session where we discussed the flume, talking with a lot of folks who care deeply about the city ditch and the flume structure that we're discussing today and its history. And I'm really glad that folks reached out to me proactively. A lot of folks from historic Littleton specifically reached out to me. Other folks who maybe weren't directly involved with historic Littleton or the Historic Preservation Board reached out to me directly. I watched the session for the last Historic Preservation Board meeting before this meeting so that I could see what that conversation looked like. Thought that was important. And I've learned a lot, right? Like last time in that study session, I was talking about, well, let's just cut a slice of this thing out and put it up in a museum or something, or make a little sign for it. And I don't think that's appropriate anymore. I think I learned a few things since then. I think the context, as Councilmember Grove mentioned, is really important. It essentially just becomes a trophy that gets stowed away somewhere if we took that option. It doesn't sound like that's what we're entertaining here today, but I also, similarly to Councilmember Reichart, had some liability concerns when we first talked about this. Some folks a lot smarter than me have sort of eased those concerns for me. I think we can take reasonable, cost-effective measures to make sure that kids aren't climbing up on it, or that they're, warned that they're not supposed to be, which can be helpful for liability concerns. I think it's something that makes our city unique. I think we need to embrace that uniqueness where it lives. And as soon as, again, like Councilmember Grove said, as soon as we get rid of one of these things, it's just gone. You can't go put it back in, and I don't think that would be right. And we talk about placemaking a lot, and I think this is an opportunity for that. So I'm very in favor of the direction that I think that we are heading. I would hope that my fellow council members would support this. I think it's an easy win. We've got Englewood chipping in, so I say let's do that option.
Councilmember Driscoll.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Reichert and Grove, and also Zink. I'm on the same page with everybody. I don't agree with Rick Cronenberg to put razor wire up there. I don't think that's the right solution. That was a joke, Rick. But yeah, 2A is a great solution. Thanks, Englewood, for presenting that other solution. I think that's the win for both cities, and certainly for those citizens that are really fighting to keep this. I don't believe I've heard from a single city that wasn't interested in taking this down. So I'm once again going to follow what I'm hearing from the citizens and support moving forward with this.
Anything else? I just have one comment. Just want to echo comments from one of the members of the public during public comment about how Historic Preservation Commission was brought in too late on this. I think, when we have these bodies, these boards and commissions that can provide feedback, we need to involve them more. And this isn't the only issue, the only board that we've kind of missed the boat on that. So I want staff to kind of be keenly aware of that. Hey, we have these resources and these members of the community that can help provide it, rather than having council make a direction, provide direction, and then go back to it and revert after getting more and better information. So that's all I have. Want to start doing motions? And
do we have public comment?
Just do for each individually. Just a resolution, no public comment.
All right, Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 67-2025, approving relinquishment and grant of easements for the city ditch.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 67. Council, any discussion on Resolution 67? Seeing none, I will open voting.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, Mayor, move to approve Resolution 65-2025, approving an intergovernmental agreement, IGA, with the City of Englewood for the City Ditch Project.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the IGA, which is Resolution 65. Any further discussion or comments, Council? Councilmember Grove?
Now, shouldn't we have an amendment
No,
here?
we just had the discussion that we can't have an amendment because Englewood
Okay.
already approved the
Okay,
IGA.
okay. Thanks.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 65. Any discussion? Seeing none, voting's open.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Mayor, move to approve Resolution 66-2025, approving a temporary construction easement agreement with the City of Englewood for the City Ditch Project.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 66. Any further discussion, Council? No discussion, voting's open.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
And Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 68-2025, approving a quitclaim deed for the City Ditch Project.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 68. Any further discussion on that, Council? Seeing none, voting's open.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, Council, are there any other
Yes.
motions to be made?
Yes, Mr. Mayor,
Reichert.
I move that we direct city staff to pursue the option for preserving the flume. That is the option with the City of Englewood.
Preserving it in place.
Preserve the flume in place. Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to preserve the flume in place per the IGA there. Any further discussion, Councilmember Zink?
Yes, as an attorney, I want to be very specific with what we are directing the city to do. I believe this would be in Section 3, the Englewood obligations subsection or section of the paragraph I. So it's J-I, J2. Roman numeral.
J1 is, yeah, sub 1. I know it looks like an I, but it's a small.
So we're.
Or is it II?
The one with the two little eyes. The one with the two little eyes.
You want to do the two little eyes? The two little eyes?
Yes. Yes.
Pass go? You may pass go, do not. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, no, I do have a quick question for the city attorney on this as well. Sorry, you do have to, yeah, anyway. So by making this motion, are we essentially limiting ourselves to the the cap to the construction work that is going to be approved? Is that the limitation to it? Because I'm not super comfortable just making a motion to preserve in place and later we find that there are further structural defects and costs kind of just go awry. Like, is that $100,000 contribution, obviously we know that goes towards the project, but we're not writing a blank check for preserve in place, correct?
Correct. That all we're doing is accepting the funds from the city of Inglewood in the amount of $100,000, and you are providing direction to the city manager right now to keep it in place. Future costs in terms of stabilization and other things that would need to take place, that'll be subject of further studies and discussions.
And
That's
I'll
my
just-
concern.
And I will say that, this is direction. This is not part of the agreement. So this is a motion, of direction to staff. We would certainly bring this back to you if we find that it's very different than we anticipated, I think, we will have, this is our opportunity with Englewood, though, because their project is going to proceed. So that's, that is one, if we have direction to preserve in place, we will lose our opportunity for demolition at Englewood's expense.
I
So
don't, sorry,
we
let
would
me
pause
make
if-
a point of clarification here. I don't have a problem about the preservation efforts that we are going to pursue. That's not a problem. That's why I'm accepting all the motions with the IGAs and the like. I have no problem accepting the $100,000. Thank you, City of Inglewood, for the contribution to the project. What I have a problem with is making a motion about preserving a structure in place, accepting $100,000, but there is no limitation, as far as I can tell, no seeming limitation as to what it would take in terms of cost on our end to do so had that overrun beyond the estimates. All we have in front of us are estimates.
Yeah, but see, I feel like the IGA that we just approved presents the city with two choices. Either tell them to tear it down, or tell them to leave it and get the $100,000. And that's the choice we're making right now.
But that's not the motion that we're making. That's not the motion that was
Just
just
move the
made.
direction with the preserving in place here, because that's what that J says, demolish or preserve the existing flume located there. And then with subsection 2, J2, is to move in that direction. It's not saying it must stay there, but we're saying Inglewood is not going to demolish it right now.
Yeah,
That's what we're saying.
that's fine with me. That's the clarification I was trying to make. I did not want to essentially put us in a position by making a motion to preserve the entirety of the flume if the costs ultimately end up exceeding what we are being reimbursed for by the city of Inglewood.
Yes, and that's
I
Staff
would
feel
just say,
comfortable
by
with
making the
direction of
motion,
staff,
we're-
yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Grote?
I was just going to say, it's almost the opposite of one, is we're basically saying, please do not allow for Inglewood to take this and destroy it. And we would like to keep it.
Councilmember Grove?
Well, do we have to redo our motion to make it a little more specific?
I think,
This is direction to staff, and you're,
Yeah, We don't usually have motions for direction. That's what's maybe confusing. I mean, you know what our intent is in terms of direction. We want just what the mayor was saying.
I don't think that a motion precludes staff returning to you with a discussion if things are dramatically different from what we're presenting. I know that there are some options, that if costs are way high, which we don't think they'll be, where we could, tailor a preservation in place based on what we find in the field and design and all of those things. So, your direction also is, city manager, don't spend, more than $100,000, unless, bring back discussion if it's different.
We're not appropriating funds. We are just
Telling me
saying,
what
choose
you
this direction.
Well, I'm uncomfortable with the motion. Do you have the motion written down?
That's why I'm uncomfortable. What is our motion?
I think he said move to direct staff to keep the direction of
Preserve
preserving
the
in place.
to preserve in place, to preserve the flume in place.
So we have.
Did you say anything about accepting
Can I-
the $100,000 for that
Can I
purpose?
offer a suggestion?
Please.
In terms of a motion, thank you. A motion to direct the city manager to accept the $100,000 from Inglewood towards efforts towards preserving in place.
Love it.
So moved.
Second.
So, we have,
original motion is scratched.
Thank you.
Correct.
Do we have to technically vote it down?
no, the second, you seconded it? Who seconded it?
I did.
You good with taking it down?
I'm good.
Okay, that's fine. Someone mute his mic. Okay,
So this time was you and,
correct.
okay, thank you.
So does all of council feel comfortable with the direction provided? Does staff feel comfortable and clear with the direction provided?
Yes, thank you, council.
Thank you for the clarifications.
Okay. Any further? No, we have a motion in a second. Mhm. Any further discussions on this? So we have a motion and a second to accept the money and move forward with that path of preserving. Voting is open.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. All right. On to item 10, we have ordinances on second reading and public hearings. Council, does anyone need a break? We're good to go? Nope, okay. We have two items on, or two ordinances on second reading. We have ordinance 11 and then ordinance 12. So ordinance 11 is an ordinance on second reading, repealing and reenacting Title 4, Building Regulations, Chapter 1, Building Codes. So we'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And I will very quickly turn it over to our Chief Building Official, Tim Steinwinder, who's joined at the table by Community Development Director Matt Knight to present this ordinance would adopt the 2024 International Building Codes.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. All right. So we're here to talk about the 2024 International Building Codes. We'll talk about the proposed amendments, a quick staff analysis, and then we'll take some questions. So in addition to the amendments that we'll be talking about tonight, there are 63 administrative amendments that we're not going to go through. They literally are just code number changes between the 2021 and the 2024 codes. Doesn't change the language of the code, but when we reference that code in our city code, we need to have the correct numbers. So we didn't want to drag all of those out, but they don't change how we administer the code. They don't change what's written in the code. It's just basically addressing. So the codes we're being adopted is the same codes that we've had before, just the 2024 versions. I won't sit here and read each one of these. There are a couple of new codes that we'll be adopting on this next slide. That would be the International Wildland Urban Interface Code.
And this protects any structures that are up against wild areas from fire. And it is required to be adopted by the state. Now, the state is producing their own code, but this code has been around for about 9 years. And so I trust that. It's been vetted. Also, the Colorado Model Electric Ready and Solar Ready Code. We're a little late on this one. We were supposed to adopt it at our first code amendment after 23. But better late than never. And this deals with solar infrastructure in homes, charging infrastructure in homes, commercial businesses, and types of electric vehicle charging. And so there's also there's an appeals process if it becomes cumbersome for a commercial business to comply. And so it's not a blanket code. There is some options for them, but it will start to build up the electric infrastructure and solar infrastructure in all new buildings. Does not apply to remodels, tenant improvements, just to new buildings. So it's not as wide as you might think. So the International Wildland Urban Interface Code, we amended section 101.2 to clarify that this code only applies to areas of the city that have been assigned a risk factor as indicated on the wildfire risk map from the Colorado State Forest Service. We also propose to adopt Appendix A. Appendixes are not automatically adopted. You have to adopt them individually. The appendix contains relevant information regarding permits and vegetation clearances. It also deals with temporary structures like tents for fairs, etc. We have proposed to adopt Appendix C. It gives alternative compliance methods that may work better for some customers, reduces the burden on customers and contractors, but maintains the fire safety goals. Just gives them more options. This is the risk map. Now, as you can see, the only parts of the city that show any risk are Santa Fe and Mineral and Trailmark. So it doesn't really affect a lot of the city, but right out there on those southwest edges, this will come into play. So some energy-related amendments. In the International Energy Conservation Code, they talk about it, it's in 3 different places, 3 different books. The building thermal envelope is amended to remove the requirement to upgrade insulation exposed during renovations to current standards, as it's impractical, and in many cases impossible without significant cost. Let me explain. Let's say something was built in 1987. They have R13 in their walls. It fits in a 3.5-inch wall. They remodel a bathroom, take out a shower, and now they have to rebuild that entire wall to fit, R25, which doesn't fit in a 2x4 wall. So now we're not dealing with scope of work, right? If we make everything that's exposed, if we have to make it meet code, we're just going to tear everything down. Nothing meets code because the code changes every 3 years, right? So if you don't touch something, you don't fix it unless it's a structural defect or it's a life safety issue. That's how the code has always been. It's a real slippery slope when we say, if you can see it, now you have to bring it to current code. And it also gets very expensive. Photovoltaic setbacks, solar setbacks on adjoining roofs. This would be for townhouses. Currently, a townhouse with a continuous roof plane, you can cover the entire roof in solar panels, except for the little path at the edge. Now, if you've got a 75 or 100-foot long building, you have a fire in the middle, the fire department has to access it from the end and then drag their hoses all the way down the ridge because they can't climb on those panels. They're slippery when wet, right? So this would give us a solar setback, a path for firefighters to get to the ridge in between each virtual lot line of a townhouse structure, right? So they could fight an individual townhouse. Now, if you know anything about townhouse construction, they're designed to burn away and fall and leave their neighbors standing, right? So you can literally fight a fire in a single townhouse, even though from the street it looks like one continuous building. It's not. They actually have firewalls in between each one. So it allows them to fight individual townhouse fires. Lighting controls. Amended to eliminate the requirement for dimmers or automatic controls for lighting in bathrooms, hallways, or lights designed for safety and security. Now, I have some more information. You guys had some question on this. It doesn't make a lot of sense to get rid of something that's going to save energy, let's talk about that. How much energy are we saving, right? A dimmer switch or a motion detector, $55. You have an electrician install it, it's $155. Let's say it controls an LED light bulb. That LED light bulb costs $3 to run for a year. You save 40%. So you save $140. So that $155 you just spent takes 140 years to recoup. And it didn't provide any benefit and nobody wants it. Now, on the flip side, if we make every light bulb in a house LED, you save $250 a year. How much power is that? It's enough to run a LED light bulb for 15 years continuously. That makes sense, right? I'm not proposing that amendment, but that is something we should look into. But to spend hundreds of dollars on a minimum amount of benefit doesn't make any sense. In fact, the manufacturing of that dimmer switch probably took more energy than it'll ever save in its lifetime. So I love energy conservation when it makes sense. This is just spending money for money's sake. It is not actually providing any benefit. So we're amending that out. But we should look into more LED light bulbs in the city, I believe. So if you had one home with all incandescent light bulbs, it takes 18 homes with all LED light bulbs to make that one home carbon neutral, right? So it's a huge cost savings just going to LED light bulbs. So that's definitely a direction we should be looking at. All right, moving on. All right, the IFGC, which is the fuel gas code, closed dryer exhausts, we want them to terminate 12 inches above grade because we get snow. And if you block a closed dryer exhaust, you back carbon monoxide up into a home. So that just makes sense to me. Roof drainage scuppers. This one's a little weird. So it used to be in both the plumbing code and the building code. A scupper is a hole. It's a hole cut through a wall on a roof so the water can get off when the drains fail. Well, they took it out of the building code and left it in the plumbing code, so now I need a licensed plumber to cut a hole through a masonry wall, which does not make sense, right? Let the building contractor cut his scuppers in, and so we propose just to put it back into the IBC and allow the mason to cut his hole through his masonry wall and not bring in a plumber, right? That just makes good sense. Roof drainage is amended to include slab foundations. Currently, we want drainage 5 feet away from all foundations so it does not undermine foundations, but they left slab foundations out of that, right? Slabs can be undermined just as well as stem walls or any other kind of foundation. Now, we don't extend that to piers. Piers are just round, and they're so deep that you can dump water next to them. It's not causing a big issue, but a slab foundation, if you undermine a corner, it's going to crack, and it's going to shift, and it's going to sink. So we want to make sure that we are draining away from slab foundations as well. Work exempt from permit is amended to clarify the definition of a fence, right? Everyone thinks they know what a fence is, but what is a fence really? If it's exposed to the elements on both sides, doesn't matter what it's made of, it's a fence. Sometimes we call them site walls, right? They could be stucco, they could be stone, they could be wood, they could be metal, but it's all a fence. So if you don't clarify what a fence really is, then it doesn't apply to these constructed walls, that separate these yards. So we also amended the measurement criteria for retaining walls. We were measuring from the foot. We allow 4 feet without an engineer. Well, if you're 2 feet below ground, you now have a 2-foot tall wall before you need an engineer. But there's nothing pressing underground, only above ground. So we propose to measure the height of that wall from grade, right? That's where it's actually retaining earth. It has lateral pressure. Underground is inert. So we measure from where we're actually going to be holding back the earth. The International Residential Code Appendix BC is adopted to eliminate the need for fire separation between a primary residence and a contained ADU, provided interconnected smoke alarms and CO alarms are installed between them. A fire resistance rated floor ceiling assembly, even in just a tiny ADU, can cost $10,000 plus, right? But if you have smoke detectors and CO detectors communicating between that primary structure and your basement ADU, then The appendix allows for that to eliminate that fire resistance rated structure in between. And it's going to really open up the options for some ADUs through the city. Some miscellaneous amendments, roof recovering. We deleted a couple of sections as they allow a second layer of roofing to be installed over wood shakes. Wood shakes are a fire hazard. I don't like them, and they do not meet our wind requirements. And now we're going to encapsulate wood inside our roof structures. It just makes no sense to me. So we don't want them covered up and hidden and creating an issue for the fire department later. Guards on retaining walls. You always have to have a guard when you have a fall of 30 inches or greater within 36 inches of a walking surface. The code was changed to put a guard on every single retaining wall, everywhere, all the time. Doesn't matter if it's in the middle of a field. They want a guardrail on it. And that would just be unsightly and costly. I'm sure their intentions were great, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense to just start plopping guardrails everywhere, right? So the proposed amendments adopt state-required codes to bring the city into compliance. The proposed amendments mitigate expensive, impractical energy code changes, which would impose significant costs but provide insignificant benefits. The proposed amendments clarify and correct issues unique to Littleton. We alphabetize the adopted codes so that it's easier to navigate, because there's a lot of them. And we will adopt the latest code cycle until the release of 2027. And with a targeted adoption of 2028, we are on the forefront. We're about the third city in Colorado to adopt the 2024 codes. Now, you can adopt codes two ways. You can grind through the research for years and try to find everything, and then when you start implementing the code, you find out what you missed. Or you can just get the code adopted and see how it plays out. Make notes of issues that come up, things that are specific to your city, complaints from contractors. And now, when we were in study session, you asked about administrative leeway, right? This is how we deal with codes that don't work until we can make an amendment. So in the first chapter of every International Code Council book, we have scope and administration. It tells us how to apply the code and how to administer the code. And all of the chapters are exactly the same. We have 104.2 says, building official has the authority to determine compliance with the code. 104.2.2, CBO can request determination from a third party, an engineer, to say that it works for what it's intended. 104.2.3 can authorize alternative materials or methods because not everything works, and maybe they want to try something different. The building code's great for new structures. Sometimes it doesn't work for a remodel. You have materials that aren't available, materials that are incompatible, so we have to figure out how to make this code work, right? 104.235, CBO can require testing of alternate materials or methods by any means to make sure they're going to do serve the purpose that they were intended for. And 104.2.4, CBO can grant modifications to code on an individual basis, providing it does not compromise life safety and meets the intent of the code. So when we're dealing with a structure that the building code doesn't really, apply to because it's older, it might be 100 years old, could be 50 years old, but sometimes the code does not really address the issue that the contractor or customer has. So that's when we figure out how to make it work, how to make it safe, and how to keep them moving. And that's where administrative leeway comes in. So we're seeking approval for all Title IV amendments, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Council, any questions? No questions. Oh, thank you for the presentation. As this is an ordinance on second reading, requires a public hearing, or a public comment period. I'll open it up at 9:22. I have no one signed up on the hearing roster. Would anybody like to speak? Ms. Chadbourne.
So I'm Pam Chadbourne. I live a block and a half from here. I live in an old house, so these are really interesting to me, and some of them impact me and a lot of people like me. First, I'll say guard on every retaining wall everywhere not required is probably a good thing. We're an old city, and we are in a river valley. Everybody here lives on a slope, and everybody here has some kind of retaining wall somewhere, pretty much. So it seems practical to me to not have that guard there. Sounds good. However, eliminating the need for fire separation for an attached ADU, I think it makes me very uncomfortable. I had a friend who lived in a townhouse in California who had a fire start in her attic. And so this is very real. And I then watched a townhouse of 5 or 6plex next to me be built. And I saw them lower those dividers in between the units. So it's very clear to me that those separations save lives. And I'm not sure that incentivizing ADUs is worth losing the fire protection. I guess I should say too, I lived in Altadena for years, and Altadena just burned down because the energy company had a short in one of their wires, and maybe an activation. So weird things happen everywhere. I do not think it's good to remove that fire separation for an attached ADU. And I also have a problem or a question about lighting. I believe that the exception that was referred to is only for internal lighting. So I'm going to make my perennial pitch for the model lighting ordinance. For external lighting, we actually need motion activation. It is very useful for security as well as energy savings and also for health. Light trespass is a health threat and danger. It causes, light trespass and light pollution is totally correlated worldwide on the earth with an increase in cancers. It's because it disrupts melatonin, and so light at night is a poison. We need to get the model lighting ordinance back in our code. We had it for 10 years, from 2000 to 2010. We need it back. So I want to see a code that enforces, or beyond, that enforces the model lighting ordinance. So the other thing is, again, I think I said this before, but I thought that the appeals and adjustment boards who considered these kind of things, we used to run this through them in detail, and I would have liked to have heard their comments about these changes. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Pam. Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing no one, I'm going to close it at 9:26. Council, any other questions or discussions? Or motion? Yes, I have.
Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 11, 2025, an ordinance on second reading, repealing and reenacting Title IV, Building Regulations, Chapter 1, Building Codes.
Thank you for your presentation. Now I don't know what offense is.
We need
second.
Oh, okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 11, 2025. Council, further discussion or comments? I do have just one question. I guess I'll pivot off of the public comment there about the model lighting code. What did you have any thoughts on having discussion in the future about approving that or having a discussion about it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that our planning commission is asked to take up in relation to their work plan for this year is related to exterior lighting and those standards potentially within the ULUC. And so I know that we're actively looking at programming that out for a future for the planning commission and ultimately bring that to council.
Okay, thank you. And just for clarification, the light dimmers with this was in bathrooms and hallways, not security lights outside, correct?
Correct. The building code still requires dusk to dawn sensors and motion sensors for all exterior lighting. This only applies to hallways and bathrooms, which, I mean, dimmers and.
Can a hallway exist outside, or does it need to have two? What if it has two fences on the
Right.
around it? Is it an outdoor hallway?
Well, now I have to redefine hallway.
Sorry, did I see someone that had a Councilmember Grove?
Yes, can you address what was mentioned in public comment about the ADUs and the separation and with the fire? I mean, I know you've given it some thought, but can you kind
Yes.
of alleviate any concerns we have.
So, yes, she's right about the townhouses, the shaft liners between them, that stops fire from horizontal travel. So what this does is this appendix allows for, if you say finish out a basement, right? You're gonna let someone live in your basement. Well, it's no different than if you had bedrooms down there and your kids are living down there. You have interconnected smoke detectors, CO detectors, right? There's someone living in the basement. This simply says that if that system is in place and working, we don't need to build a commercial-grade, fire-rated floor ceiling assembly throughout this entire house to have someone living independently in the basement.
And that would apply like for an ADU too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments? We do have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 11, so seeing no other comments, I'm going to open the voting.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Do you need a recess or anything? We got, okay. We have Ordinance 12, Ordinance 12, 2025, an ordinance on second reading, approving and rezoning 4 parcels located at 439 and 589 West Littleton Boulevard from neighborhood commercial to corridor mixed use. And as we have, well, there are 9 people signed up. I think there may be fewer than 9 people still in the audience wishing to speak. As we go through the presentation, and this is a rezoning, I would like to have a motion to go past 10 o'clock if need be, so we don't have to interrupt it later. So would someone, or unless there's any objection to that, is there an objection to going past 10?
Mayor, I move to move the, or extend the meeting time past 10 PM if the discussion were to extend that far. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I was just going to say it's approved without objection if we needed to, if it was unanimous, but we have a motion and a second, so. And we're voting. Voting's open to go past 10 if need be.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Great. And with that, I'll turn it over to the city manager and staff.
I would like to set the goal that we do get done by 10 now.
I will remind you when you have your comments. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And in that interest, I will quickly turn this quasi-judicial hearing over to our senior planner, Sarah Dusenberry. Take it away.
Yeah, it looks like we have the wrong presentation. We don't have the staff presentation on here, so if we could just have a few minutes to try and pull that up.
Councilmember Reichert, would you like to make your comments?
As this is a quasi-judicial, I would have him refrain from making comments before having a presentation. So, well, with that, we'll just take a short recess. As we are back now, I do want to, just before we turn it over for the presentation, kind of reiterate for the public and for council that this is a rezoning, which means it is a quasi-judicial hearing, which means that we are only allowed to consider information presented to us at this public hearing here in the packet and in person here tonight. And then also when we go through our determination to vote for it, that we have very specific criteria that we can consider, and only those criteria that we can consider. And so I'm going to go through and list them here, and then would ask when we go through a vote to have your comments about why you are voting yes or no on this, explain based on these 5 criteria here. The criteria being consistency, compatibility, traffic, adequate public facilities, and natural environment. And so those are the items that we have to, and the only items we can consider for this rezoning of these parcels. So, and with that, I will turn it over to our staff with their presentation.
Good evening again. So I'll be presenting on rezoning of 439 and 589 West Littleton Boulevard. Just going to go over action, application details, the criteria and analysis, and then staff recommendation. As I mentioned, the applicant, South Metro Housing Options, is requesting an approval of a rezoning for 4 parcels located at 439 and 589 Littleton Boulevard, and it's rezoning from neighborhood commercial to corridor mixed. This is just to note that the kind of outreach and public noticing as per the LUC was met. I'm actually going to do a little slightly better. So as I noted, those kind of 4 parcels are outlined in red. The larger one and the one with the dot are the one that are addressed. The other 2 have parcels. They just don't have addresses, which is why it's a little oddly described. The entire site is 1.482 acres. It's been historically used for agricultural and residential purposes. A small single-family house and shed, which are currently vacant, are what's currently on the property. And for this property, Envision Littleton, the comprehensive plan, has designated this as corridor mixed under the future land use and character area map. As noted, it's requesting a rezoning from neighborhood commercial to the proposed zoning, which would be corridor mixed. For the surrounding properties, to the north is zoned MFR, which is multifamily residential and neighborhood commercial. It is a mix of multifamily residential and office uses. To the east, across Delaware, is also neighborhood commercial and is restaurant and retail. And then to the south, across Littleton Boulevard, is small lot residential and is primarily single-family houses. And then to the west is also NC and is retail. As the mayor mentioned here, this is the criteria for consistency. We're looking at a consistency with the land use character map of the comp plan. Compatibility looks at compatibility with the surrounding properties. Traffic is making sure that there is no undue congestion, noise, or traffic hazards caused by the rezoning. For public facilities, making sure that there's adequate levels of service and that there is no kind of compromising on that property or others. And then for natural environment, again, seeking to mitigate harm to natural features on or adjacent to the subject property. So for this specific property, looking at the analysis, it is consistent with the corridor mixed use character area, going from NC to corridor mixed. For compatibility, as noted, the surrounding properties that are most closely adjacent to it are primarily multifamily residential or commercial type uses. The single-family properties across from across Littleton Boulevard, that's actually about 100-foot roughly right-of-way. Those houses also front on local streets. Those 2 factors help to kind of mitigate any potential impact from that type of use or from the proposed rezoning. Apologies. The rezoning did look at kind of the traffic impacts, and this takes the kind of most impactful uses within the corridor mixed district. So it is applying the kind of like absolute highest thing that could go there. And they noted that there would be a potential for a small increase in trip volume and peak hour trips. This is primarily related to drive-through type uses, which are permitted in CM and considered conditional use in NC. So they are still possible without this rezoning. And it was noted that even with that increase, it would be relatively minimal and would not cause any of the kind of undue congestion, noise, or traffic hazards. For public facilities, there are no adverse impacts expected. A final drainage and utility report, though, would be required prior to issuance of any permits to allow for any upgrades or mitigation that may need to happen. And for environment, with this property, any construction or any development on this property would have an impact on the trees and existing vegetation there. Any new development there, though, would be required to comply with the landscaping requirements in the ULC to kind of help mitigate some of that loss of impervious or pervious surface. So staff recommendation, staff is recommending approval of Ordinance 12 Series 2025, approving the rezoning. Thank you.
Council, any questions? I have one question, just, I think it's obvious, but just can you explain why they're requesting, what is incompatible about the use that's being requested to use from neighborhood, commercial, that would necessitate the rezone?
Yeah, so the kind of project that is kind of requiring the rezoning is South Metro Housing Options is looking to do fully affordable multifamily housing. Within the NC, a mixed-use multifamily type is allowed, but not just straight multifamily. Due to kind of how funding works for affordable housing, it is kind of in the best option to do just fully multifamily, to not have that mixed-use kind of component to it. And so it necessitated the rezoning to allow for just a straight multifamily use without having to have any sort of commercial type use associated with it. And so since that has a bearing on how they may or may not receive funding, it was found that proceeding with the rezoning to go to CM would make the most sense and fits, since it fits the criteria, it made sense to kind of provide that recommendation and move forward.
Thank you. Council, any other questions for staff? Great. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Hi, good evening. My name is Alicia Kwan Hammett. I'm with Zipperline Strategies based in Denver. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, South Metro Housing Options, for the rezoning application of 4 parcels approximately at 439 and 589 West Littleton Boulevard. I want to thank city staff for shepherding us through this process. Sarah's here on her birthday, so we really appreciate her being here. And to you, City Council, for your consideration of our application this evening. It's a planner's dream, okay, to be here. Thank you. So for those of you at home or in the audience who don't know, South Metro Housing Options is essentially the housing authority for the city of Littleton. They're a nonprofit developer who has a mission of building and managing affordable and safe housing solutions for Littleton and Arapahoe County. They currently own and operate 6 affordable housing communities in Littleton, with their most recent development being Overlook at Powers Park and Montview Flats, which just will be breaking ground soon, which is currently going through that process. South Metro Housing Options intends to develop in infill locations that are well-served by goods and services in transit. This ensures affordable living, not just affordable housing. So to briefly summarize our request, the site is currently zoned neighborhood commercial, and we are seeking to rezone to commercial mixed. Both zone districts have a future land use designation of corridor mixed use, so we feel the rezoning meets the site context. If we look at how Littleton's Unified Land Use Code defines corridor mixed, we can see that it's in the larger category of corridor mixed use, which allows for a broader range of residential and commercial uses compared to its current zone district. So taking a closer look, comparing the 2 zone districts, we can see many similar uses, with a significant difference of residential multifamily apartment being a by right use in CM and not permitted in NC. So as Sarah said earlier, multifamily is permitted in NC, but only as part of a mixed-use vertical development where the ground floor is commercial. So because South Metro Housing Options' charter is to provide affordable housing, they must deliver a fully residential building, and that is why this rezoning is being pursued. Envision Littleton, which is the comprehensive plan, identifies the site as having a future land use designation as corridor mixed use. And the purpose of CM is to provide a mix of uses, including residential, and to provide additional housing options and price points within the community. The site is also within a special corridor planning area, which you see here outlined in red. Our site is outlined in dark purple. And this corridor is identified as an extension of downtown and being a critical corridor that can handle additional density and intensity of uses. Here is our conceptual site plan. We're looking to develop a 4-story apartment building that's comprised of 1- and 2-bedroom apartments for cost-burdened individuals and families with surface parking and outdoor courtyard for residents. This concept is still being refined, and should South Metro Housing Options be awarded low-income housing tax credits from the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority in November, the architectural team will move forward with a formal site plan application to the city. This housing is needed according to the Littleton Housing Study, Business Survey, and the latest resident survey findings. Littleton has a shortage of 1,350 units for low-income residents. These are folks who often are working service jobs in cafes and restaurants. Half of Littleton's business owners reported that there's a lack of housing that meets workforce needs. Cost burden among both renters and homeowners increased, with households spending more than 30% of their income on housing. Affordable housing was listed as the top pressing issue in last year's resident survey. In some small way, this future affordable housing development will meet the needs of Littleton residents and businesses who need to retain their workforce in the city. Income-based housing, or low-income housing tax credit funded housing, was created through the 1986 Tax Reform Act signed by President Ronald Reagan. The way the program works is that federal tax credits are allocated to state housing finance agencies, so in our case that's the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, or CHAFA, by a formula based on population. Each state agency establishes its affordable housing priorities, and developers compete for an award of tax credits based on how well their project satisfies the state's housing needs. Developers receiving an award use the tax credits to raise equity capital from investors in their developments. The tax credits are claimed over a 10-year period, but the property must be maintained as affordable housing for a minimum of 30 years. Because tax credits can be recaptured for noncompliance, investors maintain close supervision over the properties to ensure their long-term viability and compliance with the IRS and state allocating agency requirements. LIHTC is the most important federal resource available to support the development of affordable housing. It currently finances 90% of all affordable housing in the United States. So if this development were to open today, we could see rent ranges from $735 a month for a 1-bedroom for someone earning 30% of the area median income, which is approximately $29,000 a year, to $1,839 a month for someone earning 70% of the area median income, or just shy of $69,000 a year. South Metro Housing Options does not set the rents. The rents are set by the Colorado Housing Finance Authority, by county, in compliance with the low-income housing tax credit program. I think these numbers sometimes are surprising, that if you think about a lot of service workers or people who are public servants fall into a lot of these income ranges that would be eligible to live in this future development. So we had 2 neighborhood meetings that were held at Littleton United Methodist Church to discuss the rezoning proposal. We had approximately 20 members of the community attend each meeting. We also have received a letter of support from the Littleton Business Chamber. So the main topic of these meetings, not surprising, was concerns about traffic. And so our traffic engineer, Fox Tuttle Transportation Group, submitted a traffic impact study to the City Engineering Department for review, and it was found that this new affordable housing development would show a total of 35 vehicle trips in the morning and 32 in the evening during peak hours. Traffic generated by affordable housing is significantly less than a drive-through, a commercial or retail use that would be permitted by right today without a rezone. So by right today, we could do a grocery store, lots of different uses, right, that are way more intense as far as traffic and use. So one of the reasons why affordable housing developments have lower trip generation than a market rate housing development is because each unit is leased by household. And those earning 30 to 60% of the area median income are less likely to own more than 1 vehicle, if at all. So should this development be awarded tax credits, we anticipate approximately $21.6 million investment into the city of Littleton, which includes hundreds of jobs. This will provide much-needed workforce housing as identified in the Littleton Resident Survey, Business Survey, Housing Study, and Comprehensive Plan. So in conclusion, we believe that we have demonstrated consistency with the rezoning criteria. Our application conforms with the land use and character map of the comprehensive plan. It is compatible with adjacent land uses, that traffic generated by this future use would not lead to undue congestion, noise, or traffic hazards. We have adequate public facilities, and we are minimizing the impacts to the natural environment and not harming adjacent properties. We have submitted reports that demonstrate compliance with the listed criteria, including a traffic study and preliminary drainage report. This concludes our presentation, and we have members of the design and development team here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions for the applicant? Councilmember Grove?
I have a question for your design team.
Sure.
Is that you?
Sure. Well, I'll try it first, and then if
Okay,
I need help, I'll call
so-
someone up. I'll call a friend.
City Council's in the process of looking at Littleton Boulevard in its entirety, the businesses, the look and feel, transportation, everything. We haven't completed that study. One of the things that is important is that we keep the flavor of the mid-mod mile. I don't know what the result of what the consultant will say, but I would say that that's important from an historical perspective. So will the people designing these buildings take that into account as they move forward without this final report or design guidelines or anything like that?
Yes, they will.
Okay.
I wish, well, David's here with Kephart, our architecture team, but Josh is he's another designer on the team, and he is very passionate about mid-century architecture, and so the building will definitely reflect that character, and we feel will be a good addition to the mid-mod mile, which is West Littleton Boulevard.
Thank you. Very much appreciated.
Well, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, well, to staff and actually have a conversation here just real quick. There was an economic impact analysis done, and I think I understand the brevity that a residential project has in terms of economic impact. I guess my question kind of on the flip side of that to staff, because we are doing this rezone, we are essentially losing capacity for sales tax revenue generation from a potential mixed commercial project on that space. I know it's a 1.4 acre site. Was there consideration given in the planning process to essentially the deferred revenue generation from a rare, I guess, commercial opportunity?
Yeah. So I think in speaking with economic development, the kind of decision to an extent was that the kind of call out and need for workforce housing kind of offsets that loss of potential revenue. And so the rezoning ultimately too, if say the funding or anything for that project falls through, the rezoning would not preclude any other type of commercial use. There's always that opportunity, but I think the biggest piece was that, yes, residential often brings in less than it requires, but with this being that kind of workforce housing component and serving that need for our businesses who are having issues sometimes staffing because of access and housing. So it was looked at from that realm. The analysis that I think was provided didn't necessarily have the standard kind of fees and things associated, so it was just taken into account to say this use provides a kind of larger benefit beyond kind of that revenue generation.
And I'll add, I don't think economic impact is really a criteria that we can consider or would be part with the rezone.
That is correct, but I do actually see this as being germane to the ULUC's definition of the character uses in those areas. So even though it is not necessarily explicitly stated as economic impact, that does go to consistency and compatibility in my mind.
I would also note that it's mostly vacant with a little tiny farmhouse that's not generating any revenue currently. So it's not like it's declining with the change of use.
Councilmember Grove?
The criteria to move into these units is income-based. Is there anything that we can point to see if that these people will work in the area? I mean, there's nothing to say that they have to work in the area, is that correct? It's just income-based criteria.
I believe that's the criteria, yes. But typically, if you need income-based housing, you're going to want to travel less, right? It's less money spending on transportation, all of that. So most likely, people will live and work, co-locate in the same place. And that tends to happen a lot with these types of developments, is that folks, they stay in their community and it's easier to get around and they spend less money on transit, more time with their families, more time in the community. And so most likely, most of the residents here, if they're working, would be working nearby.
Thank you.
And just kind of the same thing as, we're looking at a rezone, we're not looking at if it's a market rate apartment or affordable housing apartment. We're looking just at straight the rezone, not actually what the end product is. So, but yeah, I know, understand. Any other questions? See no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
As this is a ordinance on second reading, requires a public hearing. We do have 9 people signed up. I believe 7 are still here, so if you each spend about 12 seconds on your comments, we can get out of here by Councilmember Reichert's required time limit, but if not, feel free to take your full 3 minutes per comment. So I'm going to open the public hearing at 9:57 and go through, and we have Rick Cronenberger.
Good evening. It is late. I am tired. I strongly support this proposed rezone. As a 43-year resident of the Broadmoor Neighborhood Association, or Broadmoor Neighborhood, which is across the street, I've always wondered what that little farmhouse was all about. And I'm not sure that most people in Littleton even knew it was there. So South Metro Housing Options asked me to be engaged as a historic architect to participate in the discussions to address this most original and unaltered 90-year-old McQueen family farmstead. Even though this property is not historically significant, it was proposed that interpretive panels would be created to describe the long history of the site and the family that owned it. The panels would be displayed in the new building, with Historic Littleton, Inc. contributing to some of the cost. This is another way to recognize Littleton's overall history through growth and change. And this is probably the one property in Littleton that's been owned by the same family the longest of anything that exists in the city right now. They also invited my ideas on how to address new housing would fit into the context of the Littleton Boulevard's mid-century modern architecture, Pam. The proposed building will include some architectural design elements and features that are common to the most significant mid-century modern commercial architecture on Littleton Boulevard. So it'll relate a little bit to that as a modern building. Incorporating these design features will not only route the new building to the street, it would further promote our architecturally incredible Littleton Boulevard through this well-designed and necessary housing. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kate Peterson, who is now at the right moment to speak as of before, 3 hours ago.
One of these days I'll get it right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name's Kate Peterson. I'm a resident in District 3 and here tonight as Chair of South Metro Housing Options. I want to express my strong support of the rezoning for 439 and 589 on West Littleton Boulevard. Thank you to the City of Littleton's staff. Sarah, thank you for being here tonight on your birthday, for your thoughtful and collaborative partnership throughout this entire process. We are very grateful. This new housing reflects our shared commitment to providing diverse housing options along a critical corridor, ensuring that Littleton remains a welcoming, inclusive community for people of all ages, incomes, and abilities. Directly responds to the pressing needs identified in the Envision Littleton Comprehensive Plan. I ask that you approve this project and help working neighbors in our community for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person we have signed up is Kelly Milliman. I don't see her in the audience, but she did put in favor here in the paper. Corey Lundock.
Good evening. Nice to see you all.
I am here, Corey Lundock, the Executive Director of the Littleton Business Chamber. The Littleton Business Chamber fully supports the rezoning of the plot of land on West Littleton Boulevard from neighborhood commercial to corridor mixed use. This change aligns with our vision for responsible growth and density, economic vitality, and enhanced community development. Rezoning to CMU will provide the opportunity for responsible growth and increased density in a desirable location situated near retail businesses, bus routes, and restaurants. This change will encourage smart, sustainable development that will enhance walkability and connectivity while supporting a mix of commercial, office, and residential uses. We had the opportunity to take 12 business owners over to do a tour of Powers Place with the Executive Director, Corey Ritz, of South Metro Housing. And we took Stan Zislis, who could not be here, he had to leave, who owns Silver Stem Fine Cannabis. We took some other businesses from along that corridor to see the kind of projects that would be going into that possible rezoning. And the businesses were all very, very supportive of that coming in. And in talking to your sales tax dollars, Councilman Barr, hopefully these people will stay and build, spend money at Cherry Cricket or the liquor store or King Soopers. You've got walkability, you have bus routes, you have everything you need for that house, for those people right there along the way. We support South Metro Housing Options in its efforts to purchase this land and develop affordable housing units. These developments reflect a commitment to thoughtful, well-integrated housing solutions that contribute to a vibrant and diverse community. We believe this rezoning is a strategic step toward ensuring Littleton's long-term economic resilience and fostering inclusive growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Stan Zislis, as you mentioned, had signed up, wrote in favor, but is not here. Next up, Pam Chadbourne.
So everybody, thanks for sticking with us so late on, after a month off. You're tough. So I would have no problem voting against this rezoning. It is not consistent. It is not compatible. I don't think that the traffic impact is negligible. Adequate public facilities, no. It doesn't supply enough parking, and so that's going to spill over onto the street. How many more Littleton breweries can we afford? In natural environment, now it actually is open space, and this is pretty much covering the whole earth with some kind of structure or asphalt. So let me go back to consistency. This is a commercial corridor, and intentionally so. Littleton Boulevard, again, we should have had a historic plan in place a long time ago, and it would have said that this commercial corridor should be kept. And the 1 to 2 story, maybe 3 story, is the human scale, accessible feeling that people feel on that street. 4 stories, a wall, up against the sidewalk is not human scale. It does not fit with the rest of the corridor. It does not fit with the mid-century modern that's there. The whole point of the corridor is car culture. Those folks parked in front of the building and then walked to the building. And that's part of the design. This is, again, the 4-story massive wall up against the sidewalk. I think it spoils that section of the boulevard just because of that big wall. It is not human scale, and it doesn't fit that mid-century corridor car culture where you kind of look around. There's space around the buildings, and you can see them. So no, it's not consistent with the corridor, and it's not compatible with the character of the mid-century overlay district that I think we really need. And it should be commercial. This little corridor should just keep that 50s commercial style. The whole fine design of Littleton, which again we're losing because we haven't preserved it, is this concept of the commercial corridors, small human scale, with the housing spreading out from there in terms of smaller housing and then nicer housing and bigger acreage and stuff like that. The city had 14 of these walkable areas, and we're quickly destroying them. Columbine Square now being destroyed. So, no, I would vote against this. It is not consistent with the corridor. It's not compatible. And it doesn't fit there's plenty of other places for SMO to build. Thanks.
Thank you, Pam. Next up is Pat Cronenberger.
Good evening, Council. Pat Cronenberger, District 2. I strongly support the proposed rezone and urge you to vote in favor of it. And I do so wearing a few hats. First, I'm a member of the SMHO board, and we've worked very hard on this project. It will be our first workforce housing project, so that is much-needed housing in our community, as we've heard from the Littleton Business Chamber as well. Also, as a longtime resident who lives just across the street, just across Littleton Boulevard, I greatly appreciate that this project will further enliven Littleton Boulevard. Also, as a longtime resident who appreciates that the even longer residing Mulqueen family worked so collaboratively with SMHO to sell us this property. It's really very exciting and noteworthy. And as a former 15-year District 2 council member who was always interested in seeing these parcels redeveloped to help Littleton Boulevard be a place of vibrant businesses and walkability, which this kind of residential development will foster. It will become a natural extension of much of what we love about downtown Littleton. And finally, as a former transit user of the 66 bus that used to get me to and from the downtown station so that I could go to work and commute downtown, the bus used to run 3 times during peak hours each hour, and that has been cut back over the years. So I am very hopeful that the Starlight will help to increase ridership so that Littleton can make the case for restoring greater bus service and frequency in the corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Mike Wright.
Hello, Mayor, council members. My name is Mike Wright. I live in District 2, and I love it. I love living in Littleton, and I love the work you guys are doing, all the changes. It's been wonderful. I am strongly in support of this rezoning as we consider sort of the long-term, what could happen. I'm speaking particularly as a pastor. I've been a pastor of a church that's bounced around Littleton for the last 20 years. We have about 150 people with broad socioeconomic diversity. And over the course of those 20 years, one of the hardest things about my job is that I have said goodbye to dozens upon dozens of people who have not been able to stay in this community. These are great people who are great neighbors. They volunteer in all sorts of ways. And part of that is because this is it's not an affordable place for them. So any opportunity that we have to create more affordable housing, I'm strongly in support of. I love the work that South Metro is doing, and I'm fully behind this. Thanks.
Thank you. And last on the sign-up sheet is Stu Meyer. Stu?
Good evening, Council. Stu Maher, 5645 South Crocker Street, Council District 2, Littleton Heights subdivision. I'm a veteran of 20-plus years of service on the Littleton City Housing Authorities when it was both the Housing Authority and as the South Metro Housing Options. So I bring them a little background. Over those 20 years, there's been a recurring conversation, visionary conversation at the Housing Authority, even before Envision Littleton and even before the housing needs assessment in 2017. A need for the Housing Authority to be not only a provider of affordable housing, but also to be a catalyst for revitalization throughout the city. And you're familiar with some of the projects that the Housing Authority has had for many years and continues to maintain. But one focus of that initiative and that strategy has been particularly the northeast corner of the city, to try to be a catalyst in that neighborhood for development of affordable housing, even workforce housing. And so I think this, together with some of the more recent projects of the Housing Authority, particularly the Overlook project, is something that continues a real dedication and vision of the Housing Authority. And I would encourage you to continue to be attentive to that vision that they have, and as you continue to envision Littleton.
That's all we have signed up on our sign-up sheet. Is there anyone else in the audience that would wish to speak on this item?
Howdy, Billy Gooch, District 3. I was able to spend about an hour this afternoon at the open house at the Overlook at Powers Park. I followed them from SMHO from afar for many years. This was the first time I'd ever actually set foot on one of their properties. Had great conversations with a number of their employees, tried to ask a lot of questions, took a tour of the whole facility, got to see one of their vacant units, and I just left very impressed. So anything that we can do to encourage them to continue their beautiful and vital, necessary work here in the community, I would urge City Council to find that they meet or exceed the 5 decision criteria and please approve. Thank you. And we'll see you tomorrow night down in my neck of the woods at Southbridge Park.
Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public comment at 10:13 p.m. All right, moving on. Council, entertain a motion, and then we can have further discussion.
Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 12-2025, an ordinance on second reading approving a rezoning of the 4 parcels located at 439 and 589 West Littleton Boulevard from neighborhood commercial to corridor mixed use, or corridor mixed, sorry.
Second.
I think Councilmember Peters was,
Damn it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 12 on second reading. Council, further discussion. Councilmember Grove.
I have a question. Who owns the land now? I mean, are we rezoning something without the approval of the owner?
So, no, Sarah Burr with the South Metro Housing Options. We currently own 589 West Littleton Boulevard, and we're under contract on 439 with the little house on it.
I assume there was no objections from the owner, but I just wanted to make sure.
No, they would have been here, but it's quite late.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and they signed a letter of authorization, thank you, for the rezone.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Sure, I'll go through the criteria, at least how I'm reading it. So we've got 5 criteria in front of us. Natural environment, I see no undue impact to a 1.4 acre parcel in the middle of suburban, commercial, and residential. Adequate public facilities, it is ideally placed to be served by our utilities, transportation, everything like that. In fact, that's an ideal situation on my end. Traffic, man, that was actually less of a traffic impact than I would have actually predicted. Compatibility seems fine. There is neighboring commercial and residential around it. I find that compatibility usage to be well laid out. I asked the question about consistency with regards to the economic report because consistent with the purpose of the statement of the proposed zoning district, or at least the previous one, the purpose of that proposed zoning district previously had been in part economic in terms of having essentially sales tax revenue generation. However, given the size of the site, And quite frankly, hearing from staff that there is more than likely limited economic driving opportunity. There's more economic benefit to be gained, so I find that to be consistent with why it is actually being rezoned. So I would say that it would actually meet that criteria as well as the consistency criteria because there's economic benefit to it.
Councilmember Peters?
I agree. I think that it meets all the criteria. The only one I would speak more to is the natural environment, and I really appreciate the way that you've positioned it on the property. You can see in that aerial shot that the people behind the property just north to it have solar panels, and it seems like, even though it may not be, it might feel like a wall on Littleton Boulevard, I think that's far ideal to putting all those neighbors in the shade. So I appreciate that, and I find it to be compatible on all criteria.
Councilmember Driscoll?
Yeah, I agree with the other two council people. It is a project that I'll support, and I've lost my train of thought. I'll agree with exactly what Steve said. He took the words right out of my mouth, but I had something else to say. I'm sure I'll come back to it. Thanks.
Councilmember Zink?
I also agree with council members Peters and Barr, and so far, the other councilman to my left here.
Councilmember Reichert?
I find that it meets all 5 of the conditions, and I don't have any hesitancy approving the rezone.
Councilmember Grove?
I'm struggling here. Obviously, you've got your 4, so it's going to go anyhow. But a 4-story building, although I support workforce housing, I really do. I think we need it, and I think it makes sense to be near a corridor. But it's not consistent. A 4-story building isn't consistent with the rest of Littleton Boulevard, and even though there were some homes there that are now converted to commercial, I still don't think it's compatible. It will have an impact on traffic based on the application, probably not a whole lot because people will be using more public transportation or maybe walking, biking, whatever. Adequate public facilities, I have to rely on staff on that to say yes. The natural environment, I mean, it as was mentioned in public comment, it is putting more cement and more coverage on land that wasn't, although is it appropriate to keep this one little house there and all that land? So I don't really think it enhances the natural environment in any way, shape, or form. So I'm struggling to have the criteria fit in my mind.
Okay, up to me. Yeah, I find that this application meets all the criteria. I don't see any incompatibility or inconsistency. It's a little different, but it meet those. Traffic. It does say will not lead to undue congestion noise. Yes, we have a vacant property right now. Any vacant parcel in Littleton, if we have to say it does not add traffic, no vacant property would ever be built upon because anything that's done on a vacant parcel would add traffic. So I don't think this is does not conflict with that criteria. And so yeah, we have the public facilities, and there is, as the presentation said, there's no natural environment around it. It's not impacting. It's a vacant commercial property right now. So I will be voting to rezone this. So unless there's anything else, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 12. So voting is open.
The vote is 6 in favor, with Councilmember Grove voting no. The motion carries.
Great, thank you, and good luck with the next step in your project, SMHL. All right, next up on the agenda, unless Councilmember Reichert wants to have anything else to say, we are adjourned.